Kojima Hōshi, Taiheiki, Chapter 11, Godaiin Uemon Muneshige Deceives Sagami Tarō. When Yoshitsada had chastened Kamakura and extended his domination near and far, none among the great lords and mighty houses of the 8 eastern provinces made bold to oppose him, not even those who had gained his trust through many years of friendship. And men that until now had sought after the favors of the Hoshi as adherents of the enemy camp, these indeed surrendered themselves up to such of the Genji as were bound to them by any ties whatever, seeking thereby to preserve their wretched lives. From temples they fetched out Hoshi kinsmen who had forsaken the transient world to become monks, and stained their holy robes with blood. Likewise, in divers places, they violated the chasteness of the widows of the dead, who had cut off their hair to become nuns, resolved never to wed again. For in their hearts they thought, we must atone for our misdeeds, though it be by breathing the dust of the fat horses of the Genji, or by sweeping the ground outside their high gates. Those of the Hike who cherished honor and died quickly, they became wretched Usuras, doomed to suffer for many ages. How regrettable it was. And those who subjected themselves to humiliation by remaining alive, they fell into destitution at once, and were mocked at by all men. How pitiful it was. 7. An allusion to a poem by Tufu. Warriors who died in battle were reborn in the world of Usuras, where warfare never ceased. So now Godaiin Uemon, J6 Muneshige was a warrior who had been most kindly treated by the Sagami lay monk. Moreover, Muneshige's younger sister had given birth to the lay monk's heir, Sagami Tarō. Doubtless the lay monk thought with certain faith, my son is both his nephew and his lord. By no means will he be false, for he spoke to Muneshige, saying, I shall entrust Kunitoki to your keeping. Devise a means of concealing him, and raise him up when the time is right, so that he may wipe out bitterness afflicting my spirit. Muneshige agreed, saying, there will be no difficulty. And in the battle of Kamakura, he gave himself up to the enemy. Within 2 or 3 days thereafter, the Hoshi were destroyed utterly. By reason that all the Kanto bowed under the Genji dominion, in great numbers Hoshi kinsmen were sought out, where they hid in divers places. Those who captured them received properties, but those who concealed them were struck down swiftly. Wherefore Godaiin Uemon thought, no. Merely to protect a luckless person, shall I lose this life, preserved by chance? Rather let me say to the Genji warriors that I have learned of Sagami Tarō's abiding place, so that I may show my loyalty and receive a piece of land. On a certain night, he spoke a word to Sagami Tarō, saying, although I had believed that none might learn of your staying here, it seems that it is noised abroad. Even now, I have received a warning that the Funada lay monk prepares to come tomorrow to search for you. You must by all means change your lodging tonight and make speed toward the mountains off Izu in the darkness. It is in my heart to go with you, but I will not do so. If all my family flees, the Funada lay monk will suspect. It is as I have thought, and will never leave off searching for you. So he spoke, honest, seeming, and Sagami Tarō thought, truly. And Sagami Tarō from Kamakura secretly, deep in the night of the 27th day of the 5th month. How shocking were the changes recent time had brought. Until yesterday, it had been possible that if Sagami Tarō had so much as gone forth on trifling pilgrimage, or sought to avoid an inauspicious direction, he would have been encompassed about by 3 the Taiheiki 100 or 500 close retainers and great lords, mounted on goodly horses chewing at their bits. Yet now his sword was carried by a single shabby soldier, nor was there so much as a post horse for him to ride. Blindly he journeyed forth, trusting to his feet. Weeping he sought the mountains of Izu, clad in broken straw sandals and a braided hat. How pitiful were the feelings in his heart. Now Godaiin Uemon thought, through a stratagem I have caused this person to go forth from hence. Yet if I were to smite him and fetch him out, men would point their fingers at me, saying, he has forgotten the ties formed in the years of service to his lord. I would that I might cause a suitable Genji warrior to kill him, and myself receive a property as a reward. He hastened to the abiding place of the Fanada lay monk, saying, Most fully have I found out the abiding place of his lordship Sagami Tarō. If you were to go forth alone to slay him, would not the merit thereof exceed comparison? I place my trust in you, that in return for these loyal tidings you will obtain a piece of land for me, such as will sustain my life. These are the words of a wicked man, thought the Fanada lay monk. Yet he promised him, saying, It shall be done. And together with Godaiin Uemon, no, J6 he lay in wait on the road where Sagami Tarō fled. In no wise believing that enemies were before him on the road, Sagami Tarō sought to cross the Sagami River at dawn on the 28th day, shabby and weary. But while he attended the coming off the ferry on the river bank, standing aside, Godaiin Uemon instructed Fanada, saying, There indeed is the person of whom we spoke. Thereupon, 3 of Fanada's retainers flew down from their horses. They laid hands on Sagami Tarō straightly, put him onto a horse, bound him tightly with rope from the boat, and caused 2 soldiers of low degree to pull the horse's mouth, for there was no litter, it being a sudden affair. And in full daylight, they brought Chapier 11 him into Kamakura. Of those who saw or heard of this thing, there was not one but wrung his sleeves. Now the Genji said, There is nothing to fear from Sagami Tarō, since he is but a child. Yet we must not spareth life of the eldest son of an enemy of the throne. And secretly, they struck off his head at dawn on the next day. How inferior was Godaiin Uemon to C.A. Cheng Ying, who killed his child in ancient times, to exchange its life for the life of his infant lord, or to Ye Jiang, who requited his old lord's favors by assuming unfamiliar guises. For he caused enemies to strike down his lord of many years, forgetting duty for the sake of greed. All who looked upon him shunned and detested him, saying, Most marvelously unrighteous is his heart. Hearing of this thing, Yashisada said, Truly, and thought in secret to strike Muneshige down. But tidings thereof came to Muneshige's ears, so that he went forth and hid himself in divers places. Broad were the 3 worlds, registered, yet there was no place wherein Muneshige's heart might be at ease. Many were Muneshige's friends of old, yet there was no man who would give him food to eat. It is said that in the end he became as a beggar, and starved to death on the highroad. Was not this a punishment for the wickedness of his sin? The generals send couriers to Funano. On the 12th day of the 5th month in the capital, fast messengers were sent forth to Funano with tidings off the fall of Rokuhara, the one after the other, coming from the Chigusa middle marshal Tadaki no Asan, Ashikaga Jibu no Teya, and the lay monk Akamatsu Enshin. The courtiers at Funano consulted together, offering each his own judgment, whether it was meet that the man who had overthrown his lord. He finally succeeded in killing him, after which he committed suicide. Registered, the world of desire, the world of form, and the world of formlessness. The Taiheiki the emperor should return to the capital. And it came to pass that Mitsumori, the assistant chief of the audit office, spoke words of admonition, saying, Although the 2 Rokuharas are beaten down, the home provinces are filled with the besiegers of Chihaya, whose strength is such as may swallow up the capital. The proverb says, The strength of the 8 eastern provinces is a match for all Japan. The strength of Kamakura is a match for the 8 eastern provinces. Iga Hd-gan Mitsusu registered was driven back easily in the War of Shakya, but when the hosts from east of the Hakone Pass came up to the capital, the imperial armies were beaten down, and for long the realm lay beneath the hand of the military. Now if we consider the outcome of this single battle, our side has but gained 1 or 2 of a possible 10. Let his majestary a while in this place, send commands to the provinces, and observe the changes in the eastern lands. For it is said, The upright man does not draw near to criminals. So he spoke, and all the ministers approved his words. Then the Supreme Highness opened the book of changes to divine concerning the auspiciousness of a return to the capital, thinking, It is difficult to decide fittingly. The august divination came out upon the she-hexagram, that said, when an army is sent forth with righteousness, and with a worthilator, then it will be auspicious, and there will be no fault. In the first 6, the sovereign has his command, opens the country, and governs the families. But small men must not be used. In Wangpai's commentary it was written, "The sovereign has his command," means that the sovereign has not lost his power. Opens the country and governs the families, means pacifying the state. And it is because small men are unrighteous that it is said, "Small men must not be used." When the divination is thus, what more is there to doubt? Said the Supreme Highness. And he went forth from Funano in Hoki on the 23rd day, taking his august litter eastward on the Sanand 6 Iacute Road. Registered the Kamakura representative in the capital. 7 C Note 20, 4, Chapter 4. Not as in former times were the traveling costumes on that journey. 2 persons alone served in high, crowned caps and robes. Yukifusa, the chief archivist, and Mitsumori, the assistant chief of the audit office. All the others rode before and behind in warlike attire. The great nobles and courtiers, the officers of the imperial guards, and the assistants of the civil offices, while for 30 leagues on either side rode men of war in helmets and armor, carrying bows and arrows. Enya Hogan Takasada served in the foremost place with 1,000 riders, a day in advance of the Supreme Highness. Asyama, Tar 6, served in the rearmost place with 500 riders, a day's journey behind. The Kannaji governor of Yamato raised up a brocade banner on the left side of the emperor, and Nagatoshi, the governor of Hoki, guarded him on the right side. The rain god cleansed the roads. The wind god swept away the dust. How majestic it was. Surely even thus is the pole star, encompassed about by the stars of the heavens. The emperor rejoiced to behold the very mountains, clouds, sea, and moon that had afflicted his spirit, and called forth his tears in the spring of the past year, when he journeyed to the land of Oki. The wind blowing in the pines seemed to call Banzai, and even the smoke from salt fires on the coast became the cook stoves of a prosperous folk. The emperor visits Shosha Mountain. On the 27th day of the 5th month, the Supreme Highness took his way to Shosha Mountain in Haruma, registered a place he had desired to look upon for many years. Worshipping at each building in its turn, he caused men to open a hall wherein was preserved the image of the most holy Shoku, the founder of that temple. And in the hall he beheld precious treasures in abundance, such as had been kept secret through many years. He summoned a venerable monk of the temple to ask concerning those things, whereupon respectfully the aged man spoke of them one by one. The Taiheiki first there was a folded sheet of Sujihara paper, whereon were inscribed in minute characters the 8 scrolls of the Lotus Sutra, and also the sutras called Muriji and Samanthabhadra, Bodhisattva, Dhyana Karyadharma, all written in an instant by the 8th ruler of darkness * in human form, when the holy man recited the sacred text of the lotus inside the door of his retreat. There was a pair of Cryptomeria rain clogs with their stilts eaten away to stumps, worn by the holy man when he went forth daily from this mountain to the halls of Mount Hiei, walking over 35 leagues of coastal road in a single moment. Also, there was a sacred scarf of a light red hue tinged with yellow that had covered the holy man's body daily. When the holy man had worn that scarf for a very long time, he saw that it was blackened from the smoke of incense. "Ah, would that I might wash it," He said. Thereupon there was one who said, "I will wash it," the protector of the law Odo, his faithful attendant. Odo flew far away toward the western heavens with the scarf, and when a little time was past, hung it in the sky to dry, like a single cloud lit up by the evening sun. The holy man called to the protector of the law, saying, "What was the water wherewith you washed that scarf?" And the protector of the law answered, "I rinsed it in Manasaravara Lake in India, because the water of Japan was not entingly pure." This was that very scarf. There was an image of Kanzeon carved from a tree that was a Buddha, and there were 5 great bodhisattvas made by Visvakarman. Registered nor were these all the marvels whereof the old monk spoke. For when the holy man recited the Lotus Sutra, Fudd and Bishaman appeared in the guise of 2 youths to wait upon him. And on the day of the dedication of the Sakyamuni Hall of the Enryakuji, the holy man but intoned hymns, seated on this degrees a type of thick paper originally produced at Sujihara village in Harima. The 8th of the 10 kings who rule in Hades. 3, respectively. Mountain, yet miraculously his praise of the Buddha echoed in the distant clouds of Mount Hiei. When the old monk had spoken of these things fully, the faith of the Supreme Highness was so fervent within him that he offered up the rural district of Yamamuro in that province as a recompense for the perpetual copying of sutras according to the law. Never until today has there been remissness in this holy work, which follows the sacred law and conforms to the teachings of the Buddha. Auspicious indeed were the imperial petitions, whereby the Supreme Highness sought the destruction of evil and the preservation of good. On the 28th day, the emperor went to worship at the halls of Hawk Mountain. Then swiftly, the august litter took its way forward, until on the last day of the month it came to a temple of Hyego called the Fukuganji. And while the Supreme Highness rested there on that day, the Akamatsu lay monk and his 3 sons came to him with 500 horsemen. Joyfully the emperor praised these, saying, "It is because of your loyal fighting that we have prevailed in the realm. To each shall be given the reward desired of his heart," and he commanded them to guard his palace gates. Now the emperor was pleased to abide for a day in the Fukuganji, thinking to make ready the procession off his attendants and prepare the ceremony of his return. But at the hour of the Horsan, the day of his coming there, which is to say the last day of the month, there came 3 messengers on fast horses, bearing urgent letters hanging down from their necks. And these rode up before the gate and presented their letters in the courtyard. With affrighted hearts, the ministers of state made speed to open those letters. The Taiheiki, but with the coming of Nitta's report, the Supreme Highness and all the ministers gave over doubting, praising Nitta joyfully. The emperor decreed, "His reward shall be as he desires," and as a beginning he gave a reward for meritorious service to each of the 3 messengers. Masashige comes to Hyogo. To the capital when the emperor had sojourned for a day at Hidgo, he went forward again in his litter Git being the 2nd day of the 6th month. And then Kusunoki, Tam and Hyde Masashige, came to meet him with 7,000 horsemen. Valiant indeed was Masashige's appearance. From the day when the emperor went forth from Hyego, Masashige was sent a head-to ride in the foremost ranks with 7,000 horsemen off the home provinces. Peacefully the Supreme Highness traversed the 18 leagues of the road to the capital, where halberds, shields, and battle axes stood tight together, where ministers of state lined up on the left and on the right, and the imperial hosts advanced in goodly order. And on the evening of the 5th day off the 6th month, he indeed arrived at the Eastern Temple. All men hastened to assemble at that temple, not alone the warriors of the capital, but also regents, great subjects of the Grand Preceptorate, grand marshals of the left and right, great counselors and middle counselors, the 8 consultants and 7 controllers, men of 5th and 6th rank, officials of the court and of the chapter 11, provinces, and even physicians and doctors of divination, whose carriages and horses stood before the gates in a great multitude. As trailing clouds were the ranks of those waiting together on the ground. As stars in the heavens were the colored robes of the great nobles, lighting up the halls. The next day was the day of the emperor's going forth from the Eastern Temple to the palace of the 2nd Ward. On that day, by an extraordinary decree, the office of Minister of Civil Affairs was conferred upon Ashikaga Jibu Nodia Takoji, and the office of Master of the Stables of the Left was conferred upon his younger brother Hidbu no Te Tadayoshi. Takoji and Tadayoshi followed after on horseback, spurring their mounts behind the 100 officials, with more than 5,000 armored warriors, since they said, Tadayoshi is now an officer of the Imperial Guards. Thereafter followed Utsunomiya with 500 horsemen, Sasaki Hagen with 700 horsemen, and Doi and Tokune with 2,000 horsemen. Also in parties of 300 and 500, great lords of the provinces followed, each behind his own banner, riding through the streets quietly with the imperial carriage in their midst. Masashige, Nagatoshi, Enshin, Yaki, Naganuma, Enya, and the others. In no wise like to that journey of a former day, registered was the nature of the procession on the way, or the ceremony thereof, but most straightly the 100 officials guarded the Supreme Highness. The high and the low filled the streets to look, praising the imperial virtue with fervent voices. Residents. The Taiheiki, the Battle of Tsukashi. Now the emperor said, by the valiant deeds of Takoji and Yashisada are the capital and Kamakura pacified. Next we must send forth an army to Tsukashi to attack Hojo Hidetoki, the military governor of Kyushu. He named the Nij 6 great counselor Lord Morimoto to be the head of the Dazefu, registered, and made ready to send him forth. Later, when men inquired fully concerning the fighting in Kyushu, it was known that 3 persons concerted together while the emperor sojourned at Funano: the lay monk Shani Mae, the lay monk Atomo Gyukin, and the lay monk Kikuchi Jakua, who sent to the emperor, saying, "It is in our minds to join our Sylvesto the august cause." And the emperor gave them a mandate and a brocade banner. These 3 hid their devisings in their hearts, nor showed any sign in their faces. But because such a matter could not remain secret, soon tidings thereof were borne to the military governor Hidetoki. And Hidetoki sent one to summon the lay monk Kikuchi Jakua to Hakata, that he might examine closely whether their hearts were false. Kikuchi was sore amazed by the coming of the messenger, thinking, in some way our plot has been uncovered. Heckles us to destroy us. If it is thus, we must not suffer him to overreach us, but must ourselves cut Thetis binding us to him, and go against Hakata to contend with him in battle. So he thought, and sent tidings to SH6 Ani and Atomo, according to their agreement. But Atomo forbore to answer clearly, thinking doubtfully, not yet may one foretell the fate of the realm. Also, registered prominent Kyushu families. It may be that Shani Sato atone for his fault, having heard that the men of Rokuhara were victorious in every battle in the capital. For he slew Kikuchi's messenger Yahata Yashirei Maniasu, turning his back on the promise of a former day, and sent the Heto the military governor. Then, sorely angered, the Kikuchi lay monk said, it was indeed a mistake to trust the 2 most dishonorable men in Japan in such a grave matter as this. Very well. Let us see whether I cannot fight a battle without their aid. And with but 150 horsemen, he took his way toward the dwelling place of the governor, it being the hour of the hare on the 13th day of the 3rd month of the 3rd year of Genko. As Kikuchi passed before Kushida Shrine, suddenly his horse was stricken of a palsy, so that it could not advance even step. Perhaps it was a portent of evil in the battle to come, or perhaps it was a punishment, since he sought to ride past the shrine without dismounting to worship as was meet. The lay monk was greatly angered, saying, whatever shrine you may be, ought you to blame me for riding past when I go to set a battle in array? If it is thus, I shall present you with an arrow. Try receiving it. He drew humming, bulb arrows from the top of his quiver, whereof he shot 2 through the door of the god hall. And his horse's palsy was healed when he had released those arrows, so that he rode forward with a laugh, saying, this is as it should be. Later, when men looked at that shrine, they beheld a great snake more than 6 feet long, slain by Kikuchi's arrows. How strange it was. Now the military governor dispatched a great host to fight beyond his castle gate, having put all in readiness beforehand. But although Kikuchi's army was small, every man attacked with a regard for duty that was as firm as iron and stone, and every man held his life as lightly as dust. Wherefore in great numbers the defenders fell before them, until at last they drew away to the uttermost defenses of the castle, while Kikuchi's warriors scaled the walls victoriously, destroyed the obstacles, and broke into every the Taiheiki part of the castle. Nor could Hidetoki himself stand against them, but made ready to take his life. Yet just at that time, Shani and Atomo fell upon Kikuchi from the rear with 6,000 horsemen. And therefore Kikuchi called his eldest son, Takeshige, the governor of Higo, saying, "Deceived by Shoni and Atomo, I am like to die on this battlefield. Not unwillingly do I take leave off life, since such is my duty. I shall perish here, making Hidetoki's castle my pillow. Do you hasten back to our dwelling place, build a strong fortress, and bring together warriors to avenge me when I am dead." So he spoke, and gave Takeshige 50 of his retainers, bidding him go back to the land of Higo. Likewise, he wrote a poem on his sleeve badge to send home. "Now all at home await my coming, not knowing that my life must end tonight." For his heart was grieved because of the wife and children in his native place who waited eagerly for his return, not knowing that theirs had been a final parting. Over and over Takeshige, the governor of Higo, said, "By all means let me remain here where my father of more than 40 years resolves to die in battle against a greater foe." But sternly, his father admonished him, saying, "I leave you behind for the sake of the realm." Takeshige could do no other than leave him forever and return weeping toward Higo. How pitiful were the feelings in his heart. Thereafter, with his second son Higo Saburade and his 100 retainers, the Kikuchi lay monk advanced against the governor's house, heedless of the attackers in the rear. Nor did any of his men give back a step, but all perished smiting the enemy with their swords. When men came seeing, the 2 Rokuharas were beaten down on the 7th day of the 5th month, and all the attackers at Chihaya Castle have drawn away toward the southern capital. The heart of the Shani lay monk was sore amazed. "What shall I do?" he thought. "If it be thus, should I not kill the governor to escape blame?" Secretly he sent messengers to speak thereof to the Kikuchi governor of Higo and to the Atomo lay monk. Kikuchi would not listen, being warned by what had passed before, but Atomo agreed firmly, saying, "I will aid you," because he too was guilty. Tidings of SHD9's plotting were borne to Hidetoki, while yet these two selected an auspicious day, saying, "Shall it be today?" Thereupon, Nagyaka went to the Homie the lay monk's son, Chikyugo no Shin Shani, to ask for a meeting, and when as though by chance he gazed upon this place and that, he beheld men joining together the boards of shields and sharpening arrowheads, as if to go forth to battle at once. Moreover, he observed a flagstaff of green bamboo with a white top, standing at the guards' quarters beside the middle gate. "It is even as we have heard," he thought. "Has not Shani received a brocade banner from Funano? When I meet thy son, I will cut him down at once." With guileless seeming Shin, Shani came forth to his reception hall to meet Nagyaka Rokyurei. But even as Nagyaka entered the room, he drew the sword at his waist and flew against Shin Shoni, crying, "Wicked men to plot a rebellion." Agile of limb, Shin Shani received the sharp blade with a chess. Bored by his side, grappled with Nagyaka fiercely, and rolled over and over fighting him. And soon many Shoni retainers came the Taiheiki running in, who stabbed the enemy on top 3 times to rescue their master on the bottom. Nor did Nagyaka Rokyurei satisfy his desire, but perished instantly. Now thereupon, the Shoni lay monk of Chikyugo said, "It is known to the military governor that we devise a rebellion. There is no more help for it." Together with the Atomo lay monk, held forward an army of more than 7,000 horsemen that drew near to the castle of the governor Hidetoki at the hour of the horse on the 25th day of the 5th month. And in single days, fighting Hidetoki was forced to take his life, together with 340 of his kinsmen and retainers. Few are the men who cherish duty in this age of degeneration, but many are the seekers after gain. Although the warriors of the 9 provinces of Tsukushi had sworn allegiance to the military, they forgot their obligations and ran away. Caring nothing for honor, they transferred their loyalty. How regrettable it was. Yesterday, Shoni and Atomo served Hidetoki and slew Kikuchi. Today, the same SHDNI and Atomo joined themselves to the imperial cause to slay Hidetoki. Truly indeed did Po-che, I write, not from mountain soarers arise the sorrows of life's journeying, but from the fickleness of human hearts. The surrender of the military governor of Nagato. Now to H6J6, to Kinao the governor of Taitomi, the military governor of Nagato, men came saying, the battle of the capital goes hard against us. And to Kinao went northward over the sea with more than 100 great vessels to render aid to Rokuhara. When Kinao had come to Naruto straight in a wa, there were men that said, the capital and Kamakura are beaten down by the Genji, and all the realm bows before the imperial virtue. Wherefore, Kinao rowed his boats back from Naruto toward wearisome Tsukushi, thinking to join himself to the military governor of Kyushu. Yet when at Akama-ga, Seki he sought tidings of Kyushu, men said, yesterday Shoni and Atomo destroyed Hidetoki, the military governor of Tsukushi. All within the 9 provinces and Tuilin's asterisk have joined themselves to the emperor's cause. Then quickly the warriors changed their hearts, those who had followed Kinao obediently in the past. Each fled away as he willed, until but 50 men remained, drifting on the waves of Yanagi, Ga, Yura. When Kinao Sato lower his sails in an inlet, enemies waited with arrowheads ready. When he Sato tie up his ropes on an island, imperial armies aligned their shields to smite him. The men with him longed for their loved ones, riding on the white waves far out on the sea, yet there was no means whereby they might return home, nor any place to which they might draw near. Miserable indeed were the hearts of these who suddenly floated before the wind like boats with severed oar, ropes. With tranquil heart would I perish, thought Kinao, could I first but learn the fate of my wife and children left behind. Seeking to prolong his life a while, he landed a retainer from one of the boats, bidding him say to Shoni and Shimazu, it is in Kinao's mind to surrender himself. And perhaps the hearts of Shani and Shimazu were stirred to pity by these tidings of Kinao's estate, since they were his friends of many years. For quickly they Kamido fetch him to their abiding place. Now there was a person called the monk reformer Shunga of mine, a kinsman of the emperor's mother, sent away to the land of Chikuzen after the battle of Kasagi. Around this time, all the men of the land advanced respectfully to serve Shunga on the left and right, since he had come to be favored by fortune. And the government of Kyushu lay for a time with this monk reformer, because no imperial orders had yet been received. Shoni and Shimazu went up to Shunga's abiding place with Kinao, to pray that Kinao might be suffered to surrender. And the monk reformer agreed, calling Kinao into his presence. Kinao entered on his knees, knocked his head against the floor, and prostrated himself far away in the last seat, not venturing to look up. Then weeping, the monk reformer spoke a word to Kinao, saying, the Taiheiki, when without reason I was exiled to this place in the beginning of Genko, I was as an enemy in your sight. Before undeserved words, I lowered my face and wiped away tears. By discourtesy and arrogance I was oppressed and put to shame. Now heaven has blessed the humble, and the world has turned about most amazingly. Good has taken the place of evil, prosperity has replaced decline. Is it a dream or reality that yesterday my plight was piteous, and today another person suffers? I will do my utmost to save your life. It is said, requite enmity with kindness. So he spoke, and Kinao touched his head to the floor with tears in his eyes. Soon Shunga reported this matter to the throne by a fast messenger, whereupon the emperor pardoned Kinao and granted him a piece of land to sustain his life. So Kinao preserved his worthless life, suffering the jeers of the men of the realm, against the time when the HDJ6 might rise again. But very soon the fog of sickness came down upon his body, and he passed away like the evening dew. The suicide of the steward of Ushi, Ga, Hara in Echizen. During the fighting in the capital, Aikawa Uki 6, no, Suke Takiharu went down to the province of Echizen to subdue risings in the northern land, sojourning at the place called Ushi, Ga, Hara in the district of Ono. But when very soon there came men with tidings of the fall of Rokuhara, the armies of the province Ho had previously followed Takiharu fled away in haste, until none remained to him save his wife, children, and personal retainers. Then swiftly, the monks of the Heizenji temple urged rebellion upon the warriors of that province and others, hopeful of receiving Takiharu's lands as a reward. And with 7,000 horsemen they indeed advanced against Ushi, Ga, Hara, in full daylight on the 12th day of the 5th month. Beholding the enemy host like clouds or mist, Takiharu thought, though I were to fight against them, how long might I endure? While his 20 retainers opposed the approaching enemy, he caused his hair to be cut off with a razor by a monk of the chapter II neighborhood, of whom he received the Buddhist commandments. His wife and small children did the same, and weeping performed rites to attain Buddhahood in the life to come. When the monk was gone back, Takiharu spoke a word to his wife, saying, "Since your 2 children are boys, I think that the enemy will not suffer them to live, even though they are young. It will be best for me to take them along with me on my journey to the nether regions. But since you are a woman, the enemy will not go so far as to kill you, even if they find you out. If you survive in this world, form an attachment to some man who will comfort your your heart is at ease, I shall rejoice beneath the grass and moss." So he spoke to her urgently weeping. But sorely grieved, his wife said, "Not even the mandarin ducks dwelling in the water forget their conjugal vows, nor the swallows nesting among the beams. Have not you and I brought forth 2 children together, reared beneath the sleeves of 10 swiftly passing years of intimacy? Was it a vain thing that we prayed to be united for 1,000 years? Indeed, me grief cannot be endured, nor can I live even for little while, if now you fall beneath the frost of autumn, registered, and our babies perish sooner than the morning dew. I cannot bear to think of it at all, so I shall not remain alive. I shall perish with my beloved, mindful of our vow to share a single grave." So she spoke, weeping bitterly. Soon there came one saying, "The retainers who shot defensive arrows are all slain, and the monks have come across the valley toward the mountain behind us." Then Takiharu put his 2 young sons of 4 and 5 years into a Chinese armor chest with legs, bidding their 2 nurses carry it before and behind. "Let them be drowned in the Kamakura River," he said, and watched where they went. But the lady, their mother, walked holding to the cord of the box, thinking to drown her body in the same pool. How pitiful were the feelings in her heart. The Taiheiki, when the nurses put down the chest on the riverbank and opened Thelid, the 2 babies raised their faces, jesting innocently. "Where are we going, Mama?" "Come in right in the box so that your feet will not hurt." Holding back her tears, their mother told them, "This river is one of the 8 waters of meritorious deeds of the Pure Land Paradise, where children are born to play. Say the name of Amida Buddha with me before you submerge your bodies." The babies joined their hands to the hands of their nurses, sat down facing the west, and chanted the name of Amida Buddha loudly. Then each of the 2 nurses leaped to the bottom of the green water with one of them in her arms, and the mother cast her body after them into the same depths. Afterward, Takiharu too slew himself and became a heap of ashes. Though it is said that the things of life are forgotten after death, yet does the karma, a fleeting thought, endure for 500 lives, while the effect of fixing the mind on a thing endures through worlds without end. The protector, Nagoya Tokiri, the governor of T6 TDMI, resolved to stop them on the way, with his younger brother Shuri, no, Suke Aritomo, and his nephew Hyego, no, Suke Satamachi. And these 3 encamped at a place called Fuditsuzuko in Etch, where they called together the warriors of nearby places. Just at that time men came, saying, "Rokuhara is beaten down, and armies rise up in the eastern provinces to go forth against Kamakura." the warriors of Nodo and Etchai, they who had registered the direction of the Pure Land. Attachments galloped forward according to the Protector's orders, fell back to Heishinatsu, where they concerted together to advance against the Protector's camp. And then even the Protector's retainers fled away instantly to join the enemy, although previously they had thought dutifully and loyally. We will exchange our bodies for the body of our Lord. We will exchange our lives for the life of our Lord. Those who came in the morning departed in the evening, and swiftly Tokiaki's friends bore malice toward him, they who had cleaved to him and loved him. At last but 79 persons remained, close kinsmen who refused to leave, or hereditary retainers grateful for many boons. At the hour of the horse on the 17th day of the 5th month, there came one to Tokiri, saying, "The enemy advanced to give battle with more than 10,000 horsemen." And thereupon Tokiri and his brother and nephew said, "To what avail may we fight when our numbers are thus few? We would be mocked by men of generations to come, if through rash fighting we fell into the hands of the enemy to suffer the shame of imprisonment." They left their camps, thinking in their hearts, "We shall send out our wives and children in a boat to sink in the sea before the enemy draw near, and we shall take her lives inside our castle." Now the lady of the governor of Taitomi had married him 21 years before, and there were 2 sons of their love, 8 years old and 6 years old. And when had loved her for more than 3 years, by devising various means, he had stolen her away. Since the days of their intimacy were but yesterday and today, death was indeed bitter to him, though previously he had lamented to her, "I would give up life for the happiness of communion with you." Longer the Taiheiki were the months and days of his sad yearning than the life of the rock rubbed by the heavenly robe of feathers. Shorter than a spring night's dream was their love after they were joined together. How pitiful were the vows that instantly met with this affliction. And thereupon, all the wives and small children entered weeping into a boat. As the boat rowed out toward the distant sea, the favorable wind did not leave off blowing even little, but spitefully blew these travelers far out on the water. Nor did the ebbing tide turn back, but heartlessly drew the rowing vessel beyond the bay. Even such was the sorrow of Lady Seo of Matsura, who waved her scarf from Tamatsushima Mountain to the boat going out to sea. Now working the oar, the boatman stopped the boat among the waves. The one lady pressed the 2 children against her sides. The 2 ladies joined their hands together, and all alike cast their bodies into the water. For a time, their crimson skirts and red trousers floated on the surface of the sea, which became as river waters of Yashino or Tatsuda, dyed with fallen cherry blossoms or scattered maple leaves, but at last they sank into the depths. When the warriors at the castle had witnessed these things, they cut their bellies all together and burned to death at the bottom of a warfare. 79 men of high estate and low. May it not be that the spirits of the dead remained there, still thinking wrong thoughts of attachment to husbands and wives. Of late, a boatman coming up from Echigo suddenly met with and stayed there until she died. Oh, Chapter 11, ill wind and rough waves at that bay, wherefore he let fall his anchor. Deep in the night when the waves had quieted, all the aspect of that travel lodging became fearful. The wind from the pine trees, the moon shining on the reed flowers. Far out on the water there came a sound of women weeping and grieving, and even as the boatman listened, sorely amazed, men's voices called, "Come hither, boat!" from the beach. The boatman could do no other but took his craft to the shore, where 3 men entered its cabin, most valiant in appearance. "We will ride with you to the offing," they said. When the boatman had taken them out to the place where the tidal currents joined together, these 3 got down from the boat and stood upon the boundless waves. And soon 3 ladies of about 15, 16, or 19 years floated up weeping from below the waves, clad in red trousers and maniskirts. The men looked upon them with loving eyes, as though to draw near to them, but a fierce fire burned up suddenly, coming between the men and the women with its flames. The yearning figures of the 3 ladies sank to the bottom of the waves, while the men swam back weeping on top of the water toward Fudetsuzuka. Sorely perplexed, the boatman pulled at the sleeve of one of those men, asking, "In the past, "What men were you?" And he answered, naming each of them. "We were the Nagoya governor of Tatami, Nagoya Shiri no Suke, and Nagoya Hidego no Suke." Whereupon the three vanished as though wiped out. Subhakara ** of India yearned after a queen so uncontrollably that his body was consumed by the flames of his passion, while through love of her husband the maiden of Uji Bridge * in our country moistened her sleeve with tears where she slept alone. These were both strange happenings of antiquity, recorded in old chronicles. But sinful indeed was the love of the dead that caused such things to appear in the world before men's eyes. These were the ghosts of the ladies, as they had appeared in their girlhood. A fisherman holloved a queen so intensely that his body burst into flames. She was so jealous of her husband's other wife that she drowned herself in the Uji River. Wherefore an army of 50,000 horsemen was sent forth toward the Yamato road, with the Naka, no, in Middle Marshal Sadahira as its general. Likewise, Kusunoki Hide Masashige was sent from the province of Kawachi to attack from the rear with 20,000 horsemen of the home provinces. Although the Heishi warriors had scattered in the 10 directions, those who remained in the southern capital were more than 50,000 horsemen. "We will fight one fierce battle," they thought. But their ardor of a former day was used up utterly, so that they passed the days vainly, even as fish dying in the foam of a small bit of water. First of all, by imperial command, Utsunomiya went up to the capital with the Kai and Kiyawara, 700 riders who had been the guards of the outer gateway of the southern capital at the Haniaji temple. Afterward, others of those warriors hastened to surrender in parties of 100 or 200, or of 5 or 10, until no man remained who was not a Terra kinsman or a member of a family of hereditary retainers, grateful for many boons. It had been fitting for all of these to win fame by Dingen battle, since there was nothing to hope for, such as might cause them to cherish life. Yet such was the baseness of their karma that 13 of the great Terra captains became monks off the Ritsu faith at the Haniaji, putting on the 3 garments of religion over their shoulders, taking up bowls in their hands, and coming forth as prisoners. The chief thereof were Aso no Denjei Shohitsu Takiharu, Deibutsu Uma no Suk Takano, the Ama governor of Tatemi, and the Sakai governor of Iki. Likewise, more than 50 powerful warriors of the Kantei did the same. Nagasaki Shirai Seaman no J, the lay monk Nikede down of Dua, and others. Even today these are mocked by men's mouths, and after 100 years, the descendants of their 2 houses are shamed when others speak of them. Yet sore against their wishes were they delivered into the enemy's hands on the day of battle, whether by being outwitted or by having no leisure to take their lives. How much the worse were those of whom we speak now, that were not outwitted by the enemy, nor lacked an occasion to take their lives. Never was such dishonor. They willingly put on the black garments of religion before their vigor was exhausted, and faced ahead with their hands tied behind their backs. So reluctant were they to give up their doomed lives. When the prisoners came to the capital, the black robes were stripped off their bodies. Their religious names were changed back to their former names, and each man of them was given in charge of a powerful chief. As they waited to be punished, they rose up and lay down in heavy bonds, nor was there a time when their tears did not fall by reason of the grievous affliction of their spirits. To their ears came uncertain tidings of Kamakura, of chaste wives, pledged to eternal fidelity, who were carried off by wretched Contraimento taste the sorrow of Wang Keo, Chian, registered or noble sons, reared tenderly in rich halls, who became slaves of rankless men, such as never before had been permitted to draw near, a greatly superior force, which succeeded in wounding him severely and capturing him alive. Percent Tara no Munamori, the son and heir of Kiyomori. After losing the crucial battle of Dan no Yura, he leaped into the sea, but was pulled out and captured by the Minamoto, who executed him in the vicinity of the capital after taking him to Kamakura and back. A Chinese court lady who was forced to marry a barbarian chief during the Han dynasty. 330, 6 the Taiheiki to them, and suffered a fate similar to that of Tang Tiang, registered yet that the Cestal lived made their adversity as nothing. For faintly they heard the talk of wayfarers, who yesterday had passed over the roads and totteristed beside their gates, saying, "How sad it is!" Whose mother was that lady who spread her sleeve in the street as she begged for food, and Noe's fallen down dead. Whosefather was that traveler who disguised his person in a short cotton robe as he went around seeking his family, and now is captured and killed. Anthe lamented, saying, "Alas, that we have lived so long." On the 9th day of the 7th month, 15 men were struck down at Amida Peak. Aso no Dange 6 Shohitsu, Deibutsu Uma Nasuk, the Ama governor of Taitomi, the Sakai governor of Iki, Nagasaki Shira seamen, and others. Their heads were cut off secretly, and were not paraded, for it was said, "It is unseemly to think of punishments alone, when even now the emperor is returned to his throne, and divers matters of governmentaire not yet looked o', and their dead bodies were sent to fitting temples, wherein prayers were said for their enlightenment in the life to come." Now notwithstanding that the lay monk Nikkei Daeun of Dua, a counselor to the H6 Jo, was one of the foremost among the enemies of the court, the emperor thought to take him into his service, since for many years the fame of Downstalence had reached his hearing. He lessened his sentence of death by 1 degree and suffered him to hold his former lands. Yet after all Down was struck down late in the autumn off that year, for it was said that he had again plotted tebeliously. Sakai Seiki 6, no, Suk Sadatoshi was a person who esteemed himself highly, thinking, "Assuredly is it meet that I become a grand marshal, for not only am I of the house of Tara, but also I am a mighty warrior, a man of superior ability." Because the appreciation of the Sagami lay monk did not extend so far, Sadatoshi joined the besiegers of Mount Kongo with a resentful and angry heart, and been wealthy for a time. Chapter I, SC, when the Chigusa middle marshal sent him an imperial command to join the armies of the court, he came down submissively from Chihia early in the 5th month and took his way back to the capital. Now when the Heishi had taken religion's vows and become prisoners, all those in their service were spoiled of their lands and driven forth from their houses, sore distressed to find a lodging place. Likewise, Sadatoshi was sent away toward the province of Awa, with not even a low-ranking retainer or soldier to accompany him. Yesterday happiness became today's grief, and more his suffering increased. Though it is true that the prosperous must decline, he thought, still the world is a heartless place. Would that I might hide my body deep in the mountains. When Sadatoshi asked concerning the canto, people said, "His lordship the Sagami lay Munkandal his kinsmen have perished." No man knows the abiding places of their women, children, and retainers. Then indeed there was none in whom Sadatoshi could place his trust, nor any hope for a time to come. And he was worried and affrighted by all that he saw and heard. At this time it was said, "Although those who served the canto have come forth as prisoners to save their lives, in the end they will be treacherous. They must all be struck down." So it was said, and Sadatoshi too was seized. Sadatoshi no longer cherished life, so wearied was his spirit by this transient world. None the less it was grievous to him to die, without knowing the fate of the wife and children left behind in his native place. He begged his dagger of his guardian, a weapon that for many years had not left his body, and gave it to a holy man who had come to urge him to recite the name of Amida Buddha 10 times at the last, praying him to take it to his wife. And the holy man received it, saying, "I will seek her out." Then Sadatoshi rejoiced exceedingly. Seated straight on an animal skin, he composed a poem, saying, "Though I counted as the Taiheiki nothing in the days of my lord's prosperity, still must I share their affliction." He chanted the name of Amida Buddha loudly 10 times, and tranquilly suffered his head to be stricken off. The holy man took the dagger, together with the narrow-sleeved jacket that Sadatoshi had worn at the last, and made speed to go down to Kamakura, where he sought out Sadatoshi's wife to give those things to her. The lady could not listen to his words, but wept cruelly, as one helpless to contain her sorrow. Drawing forward the ink stone by her side, she wrote on the bottom of Sadetoshi's jacket, "For whose eyes did he send these keepsakes? I cannot bear to live." She put on that garment over her head, thrust the dagger into her breast, and perished instantly. Also, there were wives who cast their bodies into deep waters, unwilling to marry anew went the loss of their husbands' Madithair vouses, vain things. And there were aged mothers, lingering on after their sons were dead, hopeful over into chasms by their own will, since they had no more means of living and could not find a day's food. Now it was more than 160 years that the 9 generations of the Taro ruled the realm after Shakya. Their house prospered exceedingly under heaven, so that more than 800 Mentharioth brought Glorito its name, showing their might as military governors and protectors of divers places and provinces, and wielding power as they willed. Nor can any say how many myriads of hundreds of millions of men of divers families were their retainers. Wherefore assuredly did it seem that not in 10 years might Tsukushi and Kamakura be conquered, nor in 20, even though Rokuhara were to be attacked and brought down. Yet as though by joined tallies, the armies of the more than 60 provinces rose up together, until within 3 days all was destroyed. A shameful karma. Oh, how foolish were the warriors of the Kantei, who for many years governed everything under heaven, compassed the seas with their power, and yet ruled without justice. Because of this, their strong armor and sharp weapons were beaten down by canes and whips, *registered T, by greatly inferior military strength. 339, and they were destroyed in an instant. From ancient times until today, the proud have been cast down, and the humble have prevailed. Yet the men of the world know not that heaven diminishes the full, but give themselves over to boundless avarice. How can they fail to go astray? Kojima Hōshi, Taiheiki, Chapter 12, The Court Governs Alone. When the former sovereign had returned to the throne, the name of the era was changed back again to Genk 6, and Sheigie was rejected, by reason that it was a name newly adopted by the deposed emperor. In the summer of this 3rd year, the ministers of state consulted together concerning the affairs of the realm, and rewards, punishments, laws, and edicts sprang from the government of the court alone. The hearts of all men bowed before the imperial virtue, even as frost melted by the spring sun. Their trembling before the court's laws was as that of one treading on a sword with thunder overhead. Now on the 3rd day of the 6th month, men said, the prince of the great pagoda is come to the Bishaman Hall on Mount Shigi. The armies of the home provinces and nearby places galloped to join themselves to him, each striving to be first, and even warriors from the capital did the same, and men of distant provinces. Wherefore the prince's host waxed exceeding great, so that men said, truly more than half the realm have joined themselves to him. Although it was appointed that the prince should enter the capital on the 13th day, after all he delayed to go forth. Then there were those that said, the prince summons the warriors of the provinces, by whom he causes shields to be made and arrowheads to be sharpened in preparation for battle. And the hearts of the 34 warriors in the capital were disquieted, though none knew the enemy name. Degrees thereupon the Supreme Highness sent forth an imperial messenger, the controller of the right Kiyotada, to say to the prince, the realm is returned to tranquility, the lingering might of the 7 military virtues is brought down, and we work a great revolution in affairs of state. Wherefore is it needful that you should take up weapons and gather their warriors. While the 4 seas were disturbed, you returned for a time to the world to defend against the enemy. But in this era of peace, it is meet that you should cut off your hair quickly, resume your black, dyed garments, and go back again to the abbacy of the Tende faith. So the emperor spoke through the mouth of his messenger Kiyotada. But the prince called Kiyotada close and answered him, saying, TT is because of his majesty marvelous virtue, that now for a time the 4 seas are quiet, and the myriad folk live in safety. Likewise, it is because of his humble subjects' devisings. But now that Ashikaga Jibu no Tei has won a victory in one battle, he seeks to place himself above 10,000 men. If Weffel to strike while his strength is weak, assuredly will the warlike might of Takoji be joined to the treasonable heart of the monk Takatoki. So I gather together warriors and make weapons ready. Butin no wise do I do a blameworthy thing. As regards cutting off my hair, it may be that men will censure me, such as know a thing not in advance of its coming. Although peace has been returned to the realm by means of the sudden destruction of the rebels, there are enemies hiding their bodies, men who seek an opening and await an auspicious hour. If those above are weak, those below will certainly become insolent. Wherefore those who govern in today's world must esteem warlike prowess equally with the arts of peace. Were I to return to my clerical state, giving up the dignity of a mighty general, who would sustain the military strength of the court? One an allusion to the Tso Chuan, which lists 7 useful functions of the military, formerly occupied by Takatoki. The Taiheiki, truly there are 2 ways whereby Buddhas and Bodhisattvas benefit living beings. They are called receiving good and subduing evil. Receiving good means being mild and forbearing, and thinking first of all of mercy, but subduing evil means being powerful and angry, and thinking first of all of punishment. Many times in China and Japan, when there was need of a virtuous sovereign, a wise counselor, or a man skilled in making war, a monk was returned to the world, or a retired monarch was set upon the throne. So Chiatao, the hermit of the waves, left the cloister to be a servant of the court, and Temu and Koken of our country gave up their holy retirement to sit upon the throne. Which is best for the sake of the state? That as an abbot I should dwell in retired valley on Mount Hiei, or that as the chief of His Majesty's military government should keep peace in all the realm? Do you petition His Majesty that quickly he may grant me these 2 things? Degrees so he spoke, and bade Kiyotada return again to the court. When Lord Kiyotada returned bearing these tidings to the throne, the Supreme Highness considered carefully and made a decision, saying, "Assuredly does it seem that the prince is resolved to endure men's jeers for the sake of the court, since he seeks to strengthen our readiness for war by becoming our shogun. But wherein has Takoji shown disloyalty, that he must be punished? The warriors of the realm are still fearful in their hearts after the coming of peace. If Wechestai is a blameless man, how may their minds be at ease? Although we shall not refuse to make the prince our shogun, he must by all means lay aside his plan for chastising Takoji, and he Maditheprince his barbarian, subduing shogun. Now perhaps the anger left the prince's heart because off thighs, for he went forth from Shigi on the 17th day of the 6th month, and entered the capital on the 23rd day, after tarrying for a week at Yahata. A Tiang poet. At first a monk, he returned to lay life, took a high degree in the civil service examination system, and became an official. Reigned 749, 750, 8, abdicated and became a nun, but returned to the throne later as the Empress Shotoku, reigned 760, 4, 770. Never was there such a glorious sight as that procession. The lay monk Akamatsu Enshin served in the foremost rank with 1,000 horsemen. The Tono sign of the law Raidaichi rode in the second place with 700 horsemen. And the Naka, no, in middle Marshal Sadahira rode in the third place with 800 horsemen. Next there came 500 mighty men of valor in splendid armor, walking in 2 lines to guard the prince. Behind these rode the prince himself, clad in garments of red brocade under scarlet, threaded armor with metal fittings, whereon lions sported beneath peony bushes, chasing and meeting each other on all sides. His tassets were exceedingly long, and he wore a gold-handled sword in a golden scabbard, attached to a belt-off-silver chain made by the Imperial Munitions Bureau, and encased in a tiger, skin bag tied to the middle of a leather strip high on the left side of his armor skirt. On his back he carried a quiver of 30, 6 arrows feathered with swan's feathers, with plain bamboo shafts lacquered lightly below the knots. His bow was bound with rattan in 2 places, and again in 2 places, over all its length, with a silver hook above the leather grip to stop the arrow from slipping. Most thick and vigorous were the tail and mane of his light bay horse, whereon he had placed a saddle lacquered over all its surface with gold dust, as well as freshly dyed cords with thick tassels hanging to the ground. Truly the street was narrow where he advanced, surrounded by 12 mounted warriors on his left and right, with a sound of horses' feet as of the beating of plovers' wings. Behind the prince's horse, Tadaki no Asan the Chigusa middle marshal accompanied him with more than 1,000 riders, while 3,000 armed warriors from divers provinces rode quietly through the streets. For it was thought, we must guard against untoward happenings with trustworthy warriors, since it is still a time for using caution. As a rearguard, 3 days later came all the warriors of the home provinces and nearby-lands, 207,000 riders of Yuasa Gon, no, Tei, Yamamoto Shurjure Tadyuki, its 6 Sabure Yukitaka, Kate Tare Mitsuno, and others. Although it is true that all things are transient in this changing copyright, 340, for the Taiheiki world, still it was a most rare and dazzling sight, this entry off Tendai Abbot who had suddenly become the emperor's shogun, wearing armor and followed by warriors. Thereafter, the prince of the Mishyan cloister came back to the capital from the land of Sanuki with an army of warriors from Shikoku. And Lord Fujifusa, the Madanakoji middle counselor, came back from the province of Hitachi with his guardian, Oda Mimbu no Tei. Sufusa, the senior secretary of the crown prince's office, had died in exile, wherefore his father Lord Nobufusa lamented in the midst of rejoicing, and in his old age moistened his sleeve with tears. The most holy Enkan of the Hisshigi was brought to the capital by his guardian, Hiyuki lay monk of Kazuk, whereupon, rejoicing that no harm had committed this holy man, the emperor hastened to grant Yuki the holding of his former properties. The most holy monkin came up to the capital from Io, Gosh-shima, and the monk reformer Chin returned from the land of Echigo. The men who had been deprived of office when the emperor fled to Kasagi, or who had been forced to leave off attending to their duties, these were called forth from divers places, with their offspring who had been sentenced to death or exile, and all theirs SOILOW was dispelled at once. But the powerful warriors who had exulted in their warlike prowess and despised the owners of landed estates, registered these became servants in the mansions of court nobles, running after their swift, perfumed carriages and kneeling before their junior samurai and watchmen. Wherefore many of them thought, though we know that it is useless to bewail the vicissitudes of life and the changes brought by time, still if the courtiers to govern the realm in this wise, all the provincial stewards and housemen of the Hojo will be as the most humbly off servants. Alas, how unexpected it is. Would that the military again controlled the 4 seas. Now it was said, beginning on the 3rd day of the 8th month, rewards will be given to the armies. And Lord Sanyo, the Taian commander of the left gate guards, was given the charge thereof. Degrees the courtiers who were the absentee owners of the estates had been too weak to defend their rights. Thereupon untold thousands and myriads of men from the hosts of the provinces held up proofs of their loyal fighting, and presented papers, and sought after rewards. In truth, those who were loyal trusted to their merits instead of seeking favor, but those who were lacking in loyalty courted the god of the hearth, sought out the god of the hall, and deceived the imperial ears. In 5 or 6 months, but 20 men were rewarded, and soon even these grants were taken back, it being said that they were wrongfully bestowed. "TF it be thus," said the emperor, "let us have a new president." Hegaveth charged off the petitions to Lord Fujifusa, the Madanokji middle counselor, whereupon Fujifusa engaged himself thereto, distinguishing between the loyal and the disloyal, separating the shallow from the deep, and seeking to give to each according to his desert. But those close to the throne spoke privately to the emperor, prevailing upon him to confirm the holdings of former enemies of the court, or to grant 5 or 10 pieces of land to disloyal men. And Fujifusa resigned his office on the pretext of illness, since in no wise might he utter words of reproof. Next, Kyujo Mitsutsune, the Minister of Popular Affairs, was made the president, for it was thought, matters cannot be left thus. Lord Mitsutsune inquired closely of the Grand Marshals concerning the loyal deeds of their followers, and sought to give to each according to his desert. Registered likewise, through the speaking of private words to the emperor, by ones and by twos the estates of Takatoki's kinsmen and Kanto vassals were given away to undeserving persons. Singing girls, kickball players, officials of the guard's headquarters and offices, court ladies and monks. In all off the 66 provinces, there was no estate that could be given to a warrior, not even a plebiscite inato drill, an allusion to a passage in the Analects. The god of the hall was the most honored god. The god of the hearth was obscure but powerful. Important and influential men, the Taiheiki Hole. Wherefore Lord Mitsutsune passed the days vainly, though in his heart he desired to grant rewards fairly. Likewise, courts were established on the left and right sides of Ikuhamen Gate to decide suits of divers kinds. The judges were erudite and wise nobles and courtiers, and officials and secretaries of the Grand Preceptorate learned in literature and the law. They were divided into 3 parties. That took 6 days of every month to be their days of business. Yet not even by these solemn and imposing bodies was the realm put in order the state made secure. When a suitor gained sanction for a petition through private words, the court found righteousness in the defendant. When the court confirmed a man in his holdings, the emperor bestowed those lands upon another because of words spoken privately. And there being confusion in this wise, for one piece of land there were 4 or 5 owners, nor was there any end to the disturbances in the provinces. Moreover, in the beginning of the 7th month the inner princess was afflicted of an illness, whereof she died on the 2nd day of the 8th month. Likewise, the crown prince died on the 3rd day of the 11th month. These are not commonplace occurrences, men said. Assuredly, they are the doing of the Angra spirits of the dead. 1. Of the shrine of Sugawara no Michizane, the nobles reported to the throne on the 12th day of the 1st month of the next year, saying, His Majesty's affairs have become exceedingly numerous, and the 100 offices are out of order. The bounds off thy's palace are narrow, Nari's at a place where ceremonies can be matter ready, since its length is but 470, 5 yards on the 4 for the warriors killed in the recent fighting. Sides. But though it were to be made greater on every side by 120 yards, and though halls and buildings were to be built, still it would not equal the imperial residence of antiquity. It was 4,280 yards long from north to south, and 2,308 yards long from east to west. Likewise, the stones of the dragon tail were laid down. On the 4 sides were 12 gates. On the east, the gates called Yomaman, Takeman, and Yedaman. On the south, the gates called Bifukcuman, Suzacuman, and Kakaman. On the west, the gates called Dadaman, Esdecaman, and Imbuman. And on the north, the gates called Ankaman, Ikaman, and Tachaman. Moreover, there were an upper east gate and an upper west gate, where armed warriors guarded constantly against untoward happen, ings. In 36 rear apartments, 3,000 virtuous ladies made their toilettes, degrees, and in 72 front halls military and civil officials awaited the imperial pleasure. East and west of the Shishinden stood the Seriaden and Amaden, and on the sieve of it as jutting out beyond the enclosure proper, but it was actually well inside. The Taiheiki exaggerates the size of the enclosure, which was about 4/5 of a mile north and south and 3/4 of a mile east and west. Such major ceremonies as were not important enough to be held in the Daigokuden, the emperor's regular place of residence. 8. The hall, where the sacred mirror was enshrined. The Taiheiki north stood the Jainaden and Jokanden. The J-Kanden, also called the Hall of the August Comb Boxes, stood northward of the Empress's apartments. And there Wast Kashtan, that was also called the Archery Hall, and stood south of the Saradin. The Shoidsha was the same as the Pear Court. The Shaikisha was the same as the Polonia Court. The Hikadsha was the same as the Wisteria Court. The Jayakasha was the same as the Plum Court. And the Shitsha was the same as the Thunder Court. Also there were the Lespedeza Room, the Jin no Za, the Takegachi no Tu, the Imperial Falcon Yard, and the Needlework Office. The offices of the military guards of the left were at Senyaman Gate, and the offices of the military guardshof, the right, were at Imaman Gate. The Sunflower and Moonflower Gates faced the guards, offices on the left and right. Registered, and there were the Daigokuden, with the Koan Dono Waiting Hall, and the Green Dragon and White Tiger Towers, and the Burakuen, with the Seishad Waiting Hall, where the Ghost Chai Banquet registered and great food offering ceremony were held. The Chiwa Inn was the same as the Naka no Inn, registered, and the Nakyobo was the same as the ceremonial music office. Buddhist prayers for the protection of the two halls of the women's quarters, used mostly for storage. It faced an archery field. Uses of these buildings are not entirely clear, but some at least were at the disposal of court ladies. Their alternate names came from the trees in their courtyards, except in the case of the Shihidsha, which was called the Thunder Court because it was once struck by lightning during a storm. 2 one-off the rooms of the Saradin. Levees and other functions of supreme importance took place. 2, a group of buildings in the southwest corner of the residential quarters, where the Emperor Wento worshipped the gods. 8, a place where dancing girls were kept, and various kinds of singing and dancing were rehearsed. State were offered up at the Shingon Cloister, ***, and the rice. Offering ceremony was held at the Shinkaden. Registered at the Hall of Military Virtues, the Emperor watched shooting on horseback and horse races. And the Shadayan was a place that held the offices of the 8 ministries of state. Now there was an orangery, presented to His Majesty by the proximate guards of the right, registered, which still preserved its ancient fragrance, and there were 2 clusters of bamboo, growing thickly at the garden steps, registered, which had borne the frosts of many generations. Truly the hall of the 8 deities of the office of shrines was the desolate building, where the Ariwara middle. Marshal remained through a night of thunder with bow and quiver at his side, and likewise, a small room of the Kokiden was the place wherein the Grand Marshal Hikaru Genji admired the misty moonlit night, while a voice recited, "There is nothing so beautiful." And when, long ago, the consultant of the House of O went down to the province of Echigo, it was the Karokuden * south of Rashiman Gate, whereof he wrote sadly, "Not soon shall we meet again, O tears that drench the cherry trees in the dawn at Koroku." So, now the chamber of the Demonwasan, the Seriaden, and likewise the regent's reception room, the bell, rope to announce the use of the great nobles when ceremonies were being held. They were not the offices of the ministries, which were located elsewhere. According to the Issei Monogatari, Tales of Issei, Ariwara no Narahira and a lady took shelter from a storm in a ruined building late one night. A demon devoured the lady in an inner room, while Narahira, unable to hear her cries because of the thunder, stood guard in the outer doorway. From the tale of Genji. The misty moonlit night, Kaborazukyo was a lady with whom Genji had an affair. The line of verse is from a 9th century poem which she was reciting when they met for the first time. There is nothing so beautiful as a misty moonlit night. A building for the reception of foreign envoys. The Taiheiki coming of ministers of state, and the screens whereon wild waves were depicted. But the screens of the sages were in the Shishinden. In the first bay on the west there were Li Kai, Yaxi Nan, Tu Yui, and Chang Hua. And in the second bay there were Yang Hu, Yang H Xiang, Chn Shi, and Panku. And in the third bay there were Huan Yong, Cheng H Stian, Su Wu, and Nike Yuan. And in the fourth bay there were Tung Chung Shu, Wen Wang, Chia Ai, and Shu, Sun Tiang. It is said that the paintings were made by the brush of Kanyaka ***, and that Ono no Tofa wrote the words of praise. Marvelously wrought as were the buildings of this great palace enclosure, they could not prevail against the axe of heaven, though their phoenix roof tiles soared to the sky and their rainbow beams stood among the clouds. They were destroyed utterly by many visitations of the fire god, so that nothing but the ancient foundation stones remained. If we inquire concerning the reason for the Zephyrs, it is said that Yao, Ye, and Shun, the rulers of the 400 regions of China, were virtuous in the sight of heaven and earth, yet they forbore to cut off the ends of the reeds and thorny plants wherewith they thatched their roofs, nor scrape the bark from their oaken rafters. It was indeed improper that the rulers of a small foreign country should have built such a great palace enclosure. The great teacher of Koya * registered understood this, thinking in his heart, if rulers to come are lacking in virtue and think only to live in comfort, the wealth of the land will be expended wholly. When wrote the name tables for the buildings and gates, he Kos no Kanyaka, a renowned painter of the early Heian period cf. Ka. 880, 5900. Ono no Tofei CD. 966, was a master calligrapher of the 10th century. Kobo Daishi. His calligraphy was famous. O took out the middle of the die of Daigokuden, so Thatit became high, which is to say fire, and instead of the Su of Suzukumen he wrote comb, which is to Saris. When Ono no Tofi saw the tablets, he blamed the teacher of K6ya. But thereafter when Tofa took up his brush his hand shook, and his characters lacked correctness. Perhaps it was a punishment for censuring the things prophetically written by a living Buddha and great sage, and calling him ignorant. Yet because Tofa was a person skilled in cursive writing, soon his brush became strong, though he wrote with a shaking hand. But it came to pass that a fire broke out in the Daigokuden and burnt Upal the offices and ministries. And it is said that, though they were rebuilt swiftly, they burnt again when the malevolent spirit of fire and thunder, a lesser god of the shrine of Kitano Taman Tenjin, came down on the southwest pillar of the Saradin. He that is called Taman Tenjin is the master of elegant accomplishments and the great preceptor of men offlitters. In heaven he Shoshi's brilliance to the sun and moon and illuminates the land. On earth he became a minister of state, and Madeth people flourish. To speak of his beginnings, Ancien Timey, a little boy of 4 or 5 years, stood alone in the south garden of Lord Zezen, the Sugawara consultant, a child most fair to behold, reciting a poem touching the flower-soft garden. Seized with amazement, Lord Zezen spoke a word to him, asking, "Whence are you come, and of whose family are you a son?" "I have no father or mother," he said. "Will you not be my father?" And rejoicing in his heart, Lord Zezen carried him on his shoulder, held him in his arms, and reared him livingly inside doors of brocade. This was he who is known to men as the Kan Minister of State. Now this child understood the way of things without being taught, unequaled in wit and learning. In his 10th year, his Sugawara no Michizane. See Note 2, Chapter 6. Kan is the Sino, Japanese pronunciation of the Suga, of Sugawara. Copyright the Taiheiki father the Kan consultant smoothed his hair, asking, "Can you not compose a Chinese poem?" Whereupon tranquilly the boy spoke of the coldness of that night, and in clear words made a poem of 5 word lines. Brighty eyes the moonlight, as on new fallen snow, like shining stars are the blossoms of the plum. Alas, the golden mirror runs its course, but in the courtyard there is a fragrant smell. Thereafter his Chinese poems were abundantly inspired, their brilliance even as that of the Pomsaf, the great days of Tiang. His prose was as skillful as the prose of Han and Wei, and he committed a myriad scrolls of books to memory. Wherefore he succeeded Bei and all others in the examinations on the 23rd day of the 3rd month off, 12th year of Jogan. In the spring of the same year, it came to pass that men gathered together at the house of Miyako no Yashika to shoot at archery. and the Kan Minister of State likewise came to that place. Miyako no Yashika thought he in his heart, "This lord is a person who is always studying, even by thelate of fireflies. Surely he is unable to distinguish one part of a bow from another, since he can have no leisure to practice. Let us amuse ourselves by making him shoot." So he thought, and put a bow and practice arrows in front of the Kan Minister off state, saying, "Since it is the beginning of spring, amuse yourself for a while." The Kan Minister of State did not draw back, but joined himself to a side. He bared his snowy skin to the waist, raised up and pulled down, steadied the bow for a while, and let go an arrow. The 5 virtues of the skilled archer were displayed abundantly in the flight of that arrow, and in the twang of the bowstring and the turning over of the bow. Nor was his aim at all mistaken, but in 5 turns of 2 arrows each, he struck the mark 10 times. And Miyako no Yashika's heart was moved thereby, so that he came down, drew him by the hand, feasted him for many hours, and gave him presents of divers kinds. On the 26th day of the 2nd month of the same year, the Emperor of Enji registered, being yet the crown prince, summoned the Kan Minister of State and said to him, "Surely you are as talented as Li Cie off the court of Han, who wrote 100 poems in one night. Compose 10 Chinese verses within 2 hours, that the emperor may look upon them." When the Kan Minister of State received the 10 subjects, in an hour he composed 10 poems. Doubtless one of those 10 Washi's poems speaking of the last days of spring. "In sending off the spring I use no boat or carriage, but only say good beedo the last bush warbler, and to the falling blossoms, and lodge tonight in a poet house, so that the spring may know my heart." There was nothing lacking at all, not in men's praise of his wit and intelligence, nor in his following of the way of benevolence and righteousness. The emperor looked upon him with unbounded approbation, thinking, "Through this man alone will the sovereign's virtue become as that of the sage, rulers of Chinese antiquity, and the land will be ruled as by Confucius and the Duke of Chu." He arose from middle counselor to great counselor in the 6th month of the 9th year of Campie, and soon became a grand marshal. When the Emperor of Enji Kamido the throne in the 10th month of that year, all affairs of state were in his hands, and all military matters. No man could stand alongside him, not even a regent or a member of a ministerial family. And in the 2nd month of the 2nd year of Shadai, he became a great subject and grand marshal. In those days there was a person called the great subject of the main cloister, a descendant of Fujiwara no Kamatari in the 9th generation, and the first son of Lord Shasen. Because he was the elder brother of the Empress and the uncle of Murakami Tenno, he thought, "By no means is any man my equal, whether he be of a regent family or of the highest lineage." It was most hateful to his copyright Dago Tenno craned 890, 930. Enji was the era name given to the years 901, 923. Copyright spend the nigh writing verses. HS Ijuwara no is day. Takahira, 870, 909, who became the most powerful figure of the Taiheiki heart that he was overreached by the Kan Minister of State in office and rank, and in emoluments and rewards. Plotting secretly with Lord Hikaru, Lord Tadakuni, and Suge no Asan, he summoned the chief of the Bureau of Divination, buried dolls in the 8 corners of the imperial dwelling place, and laid a curse on the Kan Minister of State by worshipping the invisible powers. Because it is not the way of heaven to be unjust, no harm Kamido the august person of the minister. Then the great subject of the main cloister thought, "If it be thus, I will speak evil words against him, that he may be punished and destroyed." Many times he spoke, saying, "The Kan Minister of State governs the realm with a selfish heart, cares nothing for the people's misery, and makes wrong right." And thereupon the emperor thought, "Hi's a treacherous minister, causing disorders and harming the people. Hi's not a loyal minister, who censures what is wrong and prohibits what is unjust." How unfortunate it was. What man is this, who tells lies as smoothly as a piper plays? If he would prevail upon you to cover your nose, Cover it not, lest husband and wife be made estois stars that never meet. If he would prevail upon you to pick up a bee, take it not, lest mother and son be made as wild beasts. By a slanderer's false words may husband and wife be set apart, and parent and son, who ought to cherish one another as their own souls. How then might it be otherwise with sovereign and minister? On the 20th day of the first month of the 4th year of Shadai, the emperor decreed, "The Kan minister of state shall be demoted to be deputy chief of the Dasefu, and shall be sent forth in exile to Tsukushi." Unable to bear the sorrow of being sent away, the Kan minister of state sent the former emperor a poem filled with 1,000 from a poem by Po Che-ai. A Chinese queen told a beautiful rival that the king disliked her nose, advising her to cover it. Then the queen told the king that the lady covered her nose because his smell was displeasing to her, whereupon the king cut off the offending member. Another woman put a bee into her clothing after first removing its sting. When her son tried to capture the insect, she screamed to her husband that he was assaulting her. The husband became suspicious of the son, who finally killed himself. Griefs. Will not his majesty become a weir to stop me where I float away? The former emperor wept into his sleeve and took his way to the palace to prevail upon the sovereign to take back the punishment of exile. Yet in the end he returned vainly, swallowing his anger, for the emperor would not come out to meet him. Thereafter a sentence of banishment was handed down quickly, commanding the Kan minister of state to go forth to the Dasefu. Among his 23 children, the 4 that were sons were set apart utterly, banished to provinces in every direction. His eldest daughter alone was suffered to remain in the capital, but 18 daughters departed from the city weeping, to go to wearisome Tsukushi. How pitiful it was. Then from the Red Plum Hall, his study for many years, the Kan minister of state went forth into the pale moonlight of dawn. May it not be that the minister trees and plants grieve to part from him, albeit no hearts beat within them. For his plum tree flew away on a wind from the east, and let down its roots in the garden of his exiled dwelling. This is the very flying plum tree of the Dasefu which spoke to a man in his dream, lamenting, "How cruel are you who break my branches?" In the time of Nina, when the Kan minister of state went down to be an official in the land of Sanuki, even as Kan Ning registered, he rowed in a boat furnished with ropes of brocade, while poles of yew and oars of cassia wood struck against the sides beneath the moon of the southern seas. But when he went forth to exile in Sh6 Tai, between waves and rush roofing, he spread out the sleeve of a robe given him by the emperor in a bygone day, and thought on an ostentatious rich man who lived during the 3 Kingdoms period in China, 220, 280. The Taiheiki clouds of the Dasefu, with his heart in sorrow. Mourning for his wife and daughter left behind in the capital, he thought, yesterday's parting was the end. Grieving sorely to remember his 18 sons registered sent away to unknown lands, he thought earfully, indeed, they must suffer in body and spirit as they go forth on these unexpected journeys. In a Chinese poem, he spoke of his feelings on that trip. Driven forth by the imperial commissioners, father and sons are set apart in 5 places. My myth cannot speak, there is blood in my. I bow myself down before the gods of heaven and earth. When the messenger sent with him by his wife turned back on the way, he wrote, "Until they disappeared, I looked back as I journeyed, the treetops beside your dwelling place." Quickly the days and nights passed, until he came to the place of his exile at the Dasefu. And the officials from the capital set him inside a wretched hut and went away home. Istkan minister of state gazed sadly upon the colored roof tiles of the Dasefu tower and listened to the bell of the temple of Kannon. The autumn became the autumn of his life. Morning and evening he thought of home, his tears growing thicker with every word that was spoken, so that the sleeves of his garments were never dry. Nor might it have been otherwise, even had he not yearned after his home, since he had been thus grievously and unjustly accused. Now beyond endurance his bitterness entered into the marrow of his bones, that by false slanders he was condemned to be exiled. After purifying his body for 7 days, he wrote a prayer to the gods, climbed up onto a high mountain, put up the prayer on the front of a pole, and for 7 days stood on the tips of his toes. May it be that Brahma and Indra pitied him because of those slanders. For a black cloud came down from the sky and took up the petition and raised it to the distant heavens. At last, the Kan minister of state perished from the sorrow of his banishment on the 25th day of the 2nd month of the 3rd year of Enji, and men made his grave in the place that is now 5. The author is confusing Michizane's sons with his daughters. The Anrakuji Temple. How sad it was that this spring flower of the imperial palace floated away, following the never-returning waters. How sad it was that this moon off the night of the Western government TM was obscured, entering the clouds of a false name. The noble and the base shed tears, longing for a world where honesty and sincerity might flourish. The far and the near were silent, sorrowing to live in an era of degeneracy. Late in the summer of that same year, a certain Hashobo was sojourning on top of the hill of the 4 brightnesses, purifying the waters of his mind in the moonlight shining before the floor of the 10 ways to Buddhahood. Hoshi bathed 13th abbot of the Enryakuji, who was also called Sani, and received the title of monk reformer after his death. Again Hesed, truly did I hear that you died in Tsukushi on the 25th day of the 2nd month, wherefore I wept into misly bitterly, and constantly performed pious works to pray for your enlightenment in the afterlife. Do I wake or dream that now you come her looking exactly as before? So he spoke, and the Kan minister of state wiped away tears falling one after another onto his face. He spoke a word to Hashibe, saying, For a time I descended among Mento, bring tranquility to the realm by acting as a minister of the court. Yet because his majesty believed in the slanders of Lord Takahira, at last I sank beneath an unjust punishment. More fierce than the flames of a kalpa, fire trade registered, is the heat of my wrath. Though my body is destroyed, that was made up of 5 skandhas, assuredly my spirit lives on in heaven. Having obtained leave to wreak my vengeance from the degrees C Note 3, Chapter 8. The Taiheiki great and small divinities, and from Brahma, Indra, and the 4 kings, I am resolved to draw near to the 9-fold imperial palace to kick to death the crafty courtiers and slanderers who used me ill, the one after the other. The court will certainly call upon the mountain gate to perform the mystic rites of absolute control, but do you refrain utterly from going forth to the palace, though the emperor himself send a command? My debt is not small to you who were my teacher, said the monk reformer, yet neither is my duty to the emperor an inconsequential thing. Though I turn away once, must I not go to the palace if his majesty summons me 2nd or 3rd time? Then, suddenly, the face of the Kan minister of state grew wroth. He took up a pomegranate from before him, crunched it with his teeth, and spit it out against the door of the hall. And the seeds became a violent fire, burning the door. Yet the monk reformer was in no wise affrighted, but turned his face toward the burning fire, made the water, sprinkling sign with his hands, and extinguished the fierce flames in an instant, so that the door was but half burnt. Men say that this very door stands today at the mountain gate. Thereafter, the Kan minister of state stood up and ascended into the heavens. Soon thunder rolled high and low above the imperial palace, as though high heaven itself were like to fall down to earth, and the great earth itself were to be rent in twain, and the emperor and the 100 officials made their bodies small, their spirits fainting within them. For 7 days and 7 nights, the rain came down mightily, while a tempest blew and darkness covered the earth. Even as the suffering in the hell of crying and wailing, or in the hell of great crying, registered asterisk, even so were the crying voices of the high and low of the capital and Shirakawa, and of the men and women, for the people's houses were swept away in the flooding waters. At last a thunderbolt fell down onto the Seriaden in the great palace enclosure, lighting a fire in the outer robes of the great counselor Lord Kiyatsura, such as would not be put out, though copyright over all influences, whether good or evil. The hell of crying and wailing and the hell of great crying are the fourth and fifth of the 8 hot hells of Buddhism. He laid his body down androlled over and over. Mario no Asan arranged an arrow along his bowstring and turned his face toward the thunder, a brave man, a controller of the right. And he spoke a word to it, saying, "Whatever kind of thunder you may be, do you not tremble before the imperial authority?" But a palsy seized Mario's 5 members, and he fell down on his face. Next the side hair of Kano no Tadakane caught fire, so that he burned to death, and Kai no Kagetsura perished choking in the smoke. Now the great subject of the main cloister thought in his heart, "Alas, a divine punishment is visited upon me." Standing near the emperor's side, he drew forth his sword, saying, "When you served at the court, you were not lacking in propriety toward me. Though you are become a god, do you no longer owe a duty to the emperor? If you revere the Son of Heaven and have not refused to be a protecting divinity, then be quiet a while and tranquilly make your virtue felt." So he spoke to him with reasonable words. Perhaps the thunder god became quiet because of his logic, for he climbed up to heaven, not striking down the great subject Takahira or harming the emperor. The rain and wind continued upon the earth until the world was like to wash away, with all the lands thereof. And therefore the emperor called upon Hishtbe, saying, "Let us appease the wrath of the god through the power of the Buddhist law." Hishtbe 6 excused himself once and twice, yet the emperor summoned him a 3rd time. Whereupon, indeed, he went down to the capital, for he could do no other. The Kamo River was swollen so greatly that none might cross over it save in a boat. But the monk reformer commanded, "Let my carriage enter the water." And when the ox driver hastened to take the carriage into the overflowing river according to his command, the flood waters parted to the left and right, so that the carriage passed over the ground. From the time that this monk reformer went to the palace, registered, Takahira outranked Michizane in the official hierarchy, and therefore was entitled to respectful treatment from him. Takahira had actually been dead for 22 years when lightning struck the Saradin. The Taiheiki the rain stopped and the wind wassailed, as though the wrath of the god had been appeased instantly. The emperor looked graciously upon him, and he climbed back up to the mountain. Men say that it is because of this that all the realm praises the miraculous powers of the mountain gate. Thereafter it came to pass that the great subject of the main cloister was taken of a sickness, whereby his body and spirit were tormented everlastingly. And he begged the Reverend Father Jaws 6 to pray for him. But then a small blue snake thrust, put its head from the left ear of the great subject, and likewise from the right ear, and spoke to the Reverend Father J6Z0, saying, "TT is in my heart to kill this minister to be avenged of his false slanders. Your prayers and healing will be of no avail. If you wish to know what is that speaks in this way, I am the god to man Dajazai Tenjin, even he who was once the Kan minister of state." The Reverend Father J6ZD left off praying and went away, affrighted by the strangeness of the revelation, and at once the great subject of the main cloister died. Likewise, his daughter died very soon, she who was an imperial handmaiden, and his grandson the crown prince. In the same way, the second son of the great subject of the main cloister was smitten of a grievous disease, the Grand Marshal Yasutada of the 8th Ward. And a monk attended on him, reciting the Sutra of the Healing Buddha. When this monk read loudly, "The General Kumpira," registered it came to Yasutada's ears as the voice of one saying, "Kyubai Kurin," which is to say, "I will cut off your head," and he died. Also Takahira's 3rd son, Atsutada the middle counselor, died in the early years of his life. Awe-inspiring indeed was the divine punishment that instantly destroyed this man, his children and his grandchildren. Around that time, there was a cousin of the Emperor of Enji who died suddenly for no reason, a person called Kintada the Great Controller of the Right. 3 days later, this Kintada came alive with a great sigh, saying, "I have a thing to tell to the throne. Help me up, for I would go to the palace." 361 degrees, and he went forth to the palace with his sons Nobuaki and Nobutaka, supporting him on the left and right. When the emperor asked Kintada, "What is your business?" Kintada trembled exceedingly, saying, "To a most terrible place have I been, called the court of the judges of hell. There I beheld a man more than feet tall, correctly attired in robes and a high-crowned cap. He offered up a memorial rolled on a golden roller. That said, 'There is a ruler of a small country who has sinned most grievously, one known to men as the Emperor of Enji.' For he believed in the slander of the great subject Takahira and sent a blameless minister into exile. Let the court quickly decree that he be dropped into the hell of constant scorching." So he spoke, and the 30 judges of hell were greatly angered, agreeing, "He shall be condemned at once." Then the second of those judges said, "What if he shall apologize for his fault by changing the name of the era?" And all were as though troubled in their hearts. Thereafter I came alive again. So he spoke, and the emperor, sorely affrighted, changed the name of the era from Enji to Enshe. He burned the imperial. Decree commanding the Kan minister of state to go forth into exile made him a great subject again, and promoted him a grade to senior second rank. Thereafter, in the 9th year of Tengyei, a commission was given to Mibu no Yashitane, a priest of Hirano shrining the land of Omi, toppled a shrine at Kitano Hard by the great palace enclosure, even on the spot where the 1,000 pine trees grew up Miraku, lousely in one night. And men worshipped the Kan minister of state therein, calling him to man Dajizai Tenjin. Although it was so, perhaps the 168,000 gods were not yet tranquil, those who owed allegiance to that divinity. For 3 times the divers' offices and 8 ministries burnt down in the 25 years between the 2nd year of Tentoku and the 5th year of Tenjin. After one of these burnings, there was a certain pillar, newly erected by the cunning builders wielding their axes to build the C-Note 2, Chapter 6. The Taiheiki buildings of the great palace enclosure, whereon a verse appeared, saying, "Though it built, again will it burn, till Sugawara's heart be set at ease." Fearfully the Emperor Kijo thought, "From this verse may we know that the god's heart is not yet satisfied." He gave the Kan minister of state the title of Great Subject of the Grand Preceptorate, honored him with the senior grade off the 1st rank, and sent an imperial messenger to the Anrakuji to read the decree aloud. Then indeed a voice was heard in the sky, reciting a Chinese poem. "Yesterday I was made wretched by the court. Today in the city of the West Honoris restored to my dead body. What are these things to me, this sorrow in life and joy in death? Now I shall be content to guard the imperial throne." Thereafter the god's wrath was appeased, and the land was at peace. How awesome it was! If you would know the true being of this god, he is the greatly benevolent and greatly compassionate Kanzeon, through whose vows vast as the sea all living things reach the opposite shore of salvation. If we speak of his manifestation as a god, he is to man Dajizai Tenjin, who every day anew helps all living things and fulfills the desires of all who come to him. There is none but bows his head in deep reverence before him, from the emperor on high to the myriad folk below. Truly his is a praiseworthy and unequaled shrine. End of biography. In the past, there was a rebuilding of the palace that began on the 14th day of the 8th month of the 4th year of Juryaku, and the emperor removed thereto on the 15th day of the 4th month of the 4th year of Enki, in the august reign of Go Senjei In. It was a most auspicious occasion, with Chinese verses presented by men of letters and music offered up by musicians. Yet very soon all of the buildings in the great palace enclosure burned down again, in the 2nd year of Anjin, because of a curse of the Hiyoshi king of the mountain. Thereafter, the strength of the nation waned, and until this time of Go, Daigo Tenno, none among the generations of sage rulers set his hand to the work of rebuilding. But no, it was said, the great palace enclosure must be rebuilt. Though truly the world was disordered from war, the nation was wearied, and the people suffered. For not yet were the horses sent back south of Flower Mountain, nor the oxen released in the fields of Peace Grove. Registered paper money was made, such as was not used in our country from ancient times until the present, and taxes and requisitions of labor were laid on the lands of the stewards and housemen of all the provinces. Wherefore many men of understanding knit their eyebrows, saying, "TT is contrary to the will of the gods and extremely arrogant." The rights for the pacification of the state. To the grand marshals around the spring of the 3rd year of Genko, kinsmen of the hike rose in Tsukashi. Kiku Kamen, no, Suk Takamasa and Itoda Saken, no Teifu Sadioshi. These gathered together men remaining from those who had been destroyed before, and invited traitors in divers places to join them in disordering the nation. Likewise, rebels in the province of Kawachi built a fortress on Lemori Mountain, raising up a person called the Sasame monk reformer Kembedo be their general. Moreover, in the province of Iyo there was a person called Suruga Tarj Shigestoki, a son of the Akahashi governor of Suruga, hobbled a castle on Tate, Eboshi Peak, whence he spoiled and conquered the states on all sides. The courtiers made haste to raise up an altar in the imperial chamber off the Shishinden, whereto they summoned the Take. When Wu Wang, the founder of the Chu dynasty, conquered the last ruler of Shang, he sent away his war horses south of Flower Mountain and released his oxen in the fields of Peace Grove, since they were no longer needed for military campaigns. The Taiheiki Audiobook monk reformer Jigon to pray for peace in the land. For they said, "We must add the power of the Buddhist law to our warlike might, if we would bring down their bells quickly." When Jigon offered these prayers, armed warriors guarded the 4 gates, while the ministers in charge of arrangements stood below the steps with the members of the proximate guards. And before the musicians began to play, warriors lined up on the left and right in the south garden to pacify the 4 directions with drawn swords. Those who guarded the 4 gates were Yuki Shichard Seaman Chikamitsu, Kusunoki Masashige the governor of Kawachi, Enya Hogan Takasada, and Nawa Nagatoshi the governor of Hoki. Those who were summoned to duty in the south garden were Miura no Suk on the right and Chiba Asuk Sadaten on the left. At first Miura and Chiba consented to serve, but at last they held back and would not come. For it was hateful to Chiba's heart to be Miura's partner, and likewise Miura was wroth that he was commanded to stand in the right of Chiba. Even thus, by the interference of evil spirits, was a holy gathering disordered. When one thinks about it afterward, this was a sign that the realm would not be at peace for long. Perhaps because of the efficacy of Jigon's prayers, Iamori Castle was brought down by Masashige, Tate. Eboshi Castle was conquered by Doi and Tokune, and their bells in Tsukashi were defeated by Otomo and Shoani. The heads of the court's enemies were sent to the capital to be paraded through the avenues and hung up before men's eyes. Then the eastern and western provinces being quiet, in more than 700 great boats, Shani and Otomo, Kamido the capital from Tsukashi, with Kikuchi and Matsura. With more than 7,000 riders came Nidasama, no, Suk Yashisada and his brother Hyego, no, Suk. All the warriors of the provinces came up and gathered together, filling the capital and Shirakawa, until the wealth and dignity of the imperial city increased 100-fold. And to Nawa Nagatoshi, the governor of Hoki, were given the 2 provinces of Inaba and Hoki. Likewise were 2 or 3 provinces given to other nobles and warriors. Buto, the lay monk Akamatsu Enshin, was given only the single estate of Seo, though his military exploits had not been slight. Moreover, his appointment to be protector of the province of Harima was soon taken back. The extravagance of Lord Chigusa and the monk reformer Munkin. Munkin, the matter of the most holy Jadatsu, it had been fitting that the Chigusa middle marshal Tadaki should look joyfully upon learning as his calling, since he was a grandson of Lord Arafusa, the great subject of the interior of the 6th Ward. Yet from the age of 19, Tadaki's taste was for such unseemly things as hat shooting and dog chasing, and he gave himself over so completely to gaming and lechery that his father Lord Aratada broke the tie between father and child, unwilling to call him son. but perhaps it was Tadaki's karma from the past that he should prosper for a time. For because he accompanied the Su registered the name adopted by Fan Li, Chapter 4, who became very wealthy in later life. States 403, 220, 13c. They constructed canals, which greatly increased the yield of the fields. The Taiheiki Prime Highness to Oki and attacked the men of Rokuhara. He was rewarded most amazingly beyond his station with 3 large provinces and several tens of seized estates. Daily he prepared drinking banquets for favored housemen and gathered together more than 300 warriors of 5th rank in his halls. Not 10,000 pieces of money would be enough to pay even once for the wines, fishes, and choice foods that he served up. Likewise, he built stables 100 yards long, wherein he stabled 50 or 60 horses satiated with food. When he left off drinking, he went out toward Achino or the northern hills with several hundred riders in search of diversion, passing the day in sending out dogs or hunting small birds with falcons. He wore leg guards made of leopard skin or tiger skin, and trousers and coats of gold, brocade, or spotted white cloth. How shocking it was that he was not shamed by the admonition of Kung En Kyuo, who said, "For the base to wear the clothes of the noble is called arrogance. Those who are arrogant and lacking in propriety are a nation's treacherous men." After all, these were not things to be remarked greatly, since Tadaki was of the laity. But truly, it is strange to hear of the behavior of the monk reformer Munkin. In vain had Munkin left the world of renown and profit to meditate on the 3 mystic things, for he thought only of gain and reputation, caring nothing for holy contemplation. Beyond all need, he piled up goods and treasures in storehouses, instead of rendering aid to those who were poor and in want. He gathered together arms of war, kept soldiers in very great numbers, and gave presents for nothing to people who flattered him and formed a tie with him, so that the city was filled with men who said, "We are retainers of the monk reformer Munkin," and banded together with outspread elbows, 500 or 600 of them. Even when he traveled the short distance to the palace, several hundred warriors on horseback encompassed his litter about, behaving as they pleased on the way. Quickly were his holy garments soiled by the dust from horses' feet. Quickly his lack of propriety called forth words of censure from men's mouths, registered the body, voice, and mind of the Buddha. Now the teacher of the Law Hui Yian trademark of Lu Mountain vowed, never to forsake his mountain, even from the time when he left the realm of worldly annoyances to seat himself in the chamber of solitude. He joined together the 18 wise and holy ones, and for many years exerted himself in worship and praise 6 times a day. Likewise, the harmonious reverence Fa Chang trademark of Ta, Hai moved his thatched abode far from the ways of men, thinking, "By no means will I allow my dwelling place to be known." Here cited poems that sang of the pleasure of living in the mountains, and his master affirmed that he achieved enlightenment. So right, thinking monks of ancient and recent times have ever wrapped up their light and wiped out their tracks. All their lives, they have followed the clouds hanging over the mountains at dusk, taken pond lettuces as garments, practiced virtue, and purified their hearts. Wherefore it was no common thing that in this wise the monk reformer Munkin wasted by the bonds of renown and profit. May it not be that demons and heretics took possession of his heart, causing him to behave in that way. There follows a digression designed to illustrate the conduct becoming to a monk. If you would know why I say this, around the time of Bunji, there was a certain monk of the capital called the Most Holy Jidatsu. This Jidatsu's mother thought in her heart, "My son is not as other men," for she bore him after she dreamed of swallowing a handbell in the 17th year of her life. When he was in his 3rd year, she sent him to a monastery to become a holy saint. And because Jidatsu was compassionate and wise, he did not regret the rents in his 3 garments. Because he was good and virtuous in thought, word, and deed, he did not lament the emptiness of his single bowl. He walked in the dust of the impure world. For the man Ha truly lives apart, does not reject the haunts on Lu Mountain for 30 years without leaving it. Members of his religious community, a Chinese monk of the Tiang period. The Taiheiki of men, yet his mind was not invaded by Thefog of the three poisons. Trusting to fate, he passed the months and years. Helping living things, he went on foot across mountain sand drivers. Once this holy man went to the grand shrine of Ise to worship at the outer and inner shrines and speak secretly of the delights of complete response to the teachings of Buddhism. These shrines are not as other shrines, for their barge boards are not curved, nor do their pointed boards bend backward. Wherefore it seemed to Jidatsu that they were as the straight way that rejects Wadi's roundabout. TM, and beholding the ancient pines lowering their branches and the old trees spreading out their leaves, he likened them to bodhisattvas descending from heaven to save living things here below. Although the names of the three treasures of Buddhism may not be spoken here, he thought weeping, yet in this way 2 men may reach salvation. When the day was done, the holy man began to pass the hours of the night reciting the name of Amida Budding front of the outer shrine, for it was in his heart that he would not lodge in a house. He turned aside sleep with the pine wind from Kamaji Mountain and purified his spirit in the moonlight on the Mimasuso River. But suddenly the sky grew cloudy, rain and wind blew violently, and there came a noise of galloping horses above the clouds, pulling thunderous carriages from the east and west. Alas, how terrible. What can it be? Jidatsu said, fainting with fright. As he watched, palace buildings appeared in the heavens, and towers and pavilions, with curtains in the courtyards and hangings before the gates. It seemed that there were 2,000 or 3,000 guests come thither in horse, drawn carriages from the 10 directions, who sat in 2 long lines on the left and right. To the place of honor there came a giant, most extraordinary to behold, borne by 8 dragons. He was 200 or 300 TM wrong desire, hatred, and stupidity. Buddhist preaching was not permitted at these most revered of Shinto shrines. Percent, the one vehicle doctrine of the Tendai sect. The quotation is section from the Lotus Sutra. Dread fetal, with 12 demon heads and 40, 2 arms on the left and right, grasping the sun and moon and holding up weapons. Nor were his followers ordinary men. There were some among them with 8 arms and 6 legs, who pressed iron shields to their sides, and others with 3 heads, who wore metal armor on their bodies. When all had sat down, each in his appointed place, the giant spoke to those on the left and right, saying, "Because I have won a victory in battle against Indra, I have laid hands on the sun and moon, taken up my abode on the summit of Mount Sumeru, and trod on the great sea with 1 foot, yet daily are many myriads of my followers destroyed. The cause thereof is a saint called Jidatsu, who has come forth in the neighborhood of the capital of the country of the extreme east in the world of men. By reason of his instruction and guidance, and his assistance to living things, the power of the Buddhist law has waxed great, and Indra the king of heaven has become strong. The demons have been made weak, the Asuras have lost their power. While Jidatsu is thus, we cannot prevail in battle against the king of heaven. In some way we must work upon his spirit which seeks enlightenment, so that his heart will become arrogant and lazy." Thereupon one came forward into the middle of the assembly, with his name writ in golden letters on the front of his helmet, Mara the king of the 6th heaven. Mara spoke a word, saying, "TT will be easy to work upon his heart which seeks enlightenment. First we shall put it into the mind of Go Toba, in to destroy the H6J family, so that he will go forth against Rokuhara. Yashitoki will certainly fight against the imperial armies, whereupon we shall lend him strength to defeat them. When Go Toba In is sent away to a distant land, Yashitoki will rule the realm and look to the government of the state. And will he not place the second princely son of heroes, no, in asterisk upon the throne? Then Jidatsu will be made a court monk, since he hates the sage to whom that prince, a son of Takakura Tenno, reigned 1,168, 1,180. Heroes no in second son was Go. Horikawa reigned 1,220, 1,230. 2. The emperor selected by the H6J6 after the disturbance of Shaki. The Taiheiki turns in matters of religion. Attending closely upon the emperor, he will concern himself with the ceremonioff serving at court. Daily from that time, he will become more neglectful in thought, word, and deed, and his pride will increase constantly until he becomes a rule-breaking, shameless monk. Likewise, in this way we shall gain new followers. The Demon Sand heretics lined up in 2 rows all agreed. What he says is entirely correct, and they flew away to the east and west. Hearing these things, the holy man wept tears of joy, thinking, "This is a kindness to me from Amaterasu, who encourages me to seek enlightenment." Thereafter he did not return to the capital, but abode in a cave in the mountain called Kasagi in the land of Yamashiro, gathering fallen leaves to make his robes and picking up fruits, nuts, and berries to be his food. For long he sought to leave this impure world, and prayed constantly with all his might to go to the pure land. When Jadatsu had passed 3 or plus 4 years, in this manner, men strove together in the disturbance of Shakya. Yashitoki ruled the realm, Go-Toba-in was banished, and the princely son of heroes, No-in sat upon the throne. When the new emperor heard that the most holy Jadatsu abode in the cave at Kasagi, again and again he sent imperial messengers to summon him, that he might make him a monk off the court. Indeed, it is as Mara the king of the 6th heaven said, thought the holy man. Nor did he obey the command, but zealously practiced austerities to purify his heart, and his wisdom and virtue grew so great that at last he became the founder of a temple, wherein today the Buddhist law flourishes and spreads. End of digression. If we think of this person in the light of that one, how dreadful was the behavior of the most holy monkin, who thus foolishly suffered his eyes to be blinded. When very soon the disturbance of Kemu began, he became a solitary beggar with no disciple to a 37, inherit his teachings, and wandered around in the neighborhood of Yashino until he died. Or so we have heard. Hirori shoots a strange bird. In the 7th month of the 3rd year of Jenkt, the court changed the name of the era to Kemu. It may be that they imitated an era name of the Han court, saying, "It is an auspicious precedent that Kwang Wu of later Han put down the disturbance of Wang Mang, and again continued the rule of Han." There was a pestilence in that year, and the numbers of those who sickened and died were exceedingly great. Moreover, from around autumn a strange bird came out above the Shishinden, crying, "How long? How long?" with a voice that echoed in the clouds and awoke men from their sleep. All who heard it detested it and feared it. The courtiers consulted together, saying, "Long ago in a different land 10 sons came forth, even in the days of Yao. And a person named I shot down 9 of those sons, according to the command of Yao. Likewise in ancient days in our country, when Horikawa-in sat upon the throne, there was an apparition distressful to the emperor, and Yashi, the former governor of Mutsu, stood at the lower entrance to the hall, where 3 times he twanged his bowstring to quiet it, according to the imperial command. Likewise, when Kano-in sat upon the throne, by imperial command did Yorimasa, the Minamoto minister of 3rd rank, shoot down a bird called the Nu, that flew and cried in the clouds. Since there are these precedents, let someone from among the Genji shoot at this bird." But although they asked, none said, "I will do it," for perhaps every man thought in his heart, "I shall be dishonored in my lifetime should I fail to hit it." "If it is thus," said the emperor, "let a worthy man be chosen." T.M. Wang mangled China briefly between the former Han 200 and 23C, AP 9, and later Han AV 25, 220 dynasties. Kwang Wu, the 5th emperor of the later Han, adopted Qin Wu Japanese Kemu as an era name. See Note 7, Chapter 7. The Taiheiki from among the senior members of the former Emperor Palace Guards, registered degrees, then there was one who said, Oki no Jirei Seaman Hirori is a worthiman, he who is in the service of his lordship the Nijo regent. Let him be summoned immediately, said the emperor. And they called Hirori forth. Hirori answered the summons, standing near the bell chamber of the Seriaden. Nor was he unwilling, but assented respectfully, thinking, if this bird is as small as a mite nesting in a mosquito eyelash, an arrow cannot strike it, or if it flies far away in the air, I cannot kill it. But if it is a bird visible to a man's eye, and if it flies within the compass of an arrow, come what may, I shall not fail to hit it. He drew up the bow and arrows that a servant fetched for him, hid in the shadow off the outer veranda, and spied out the situation of the bird. The air was pure and clear, and the shining of the moon was exceedingly bright, it being the 17th night of the 8th month. Yet above the palace there hung a black cloud, whence unceasingly the bird cried out. When it called, did it not vomit flames from its mouth? For there were flashes of lightning coming together with the sound of its voice, such as pierced the august screens with their brightness. When Hirori had made sure of the bird's abiding place, he strung his bow, moistened the string with his mouth, fitted in a humming bulb arrow, and took his aim. The Supreme Highness came out to the South Hall to watch, and men stood sleeve to sleeve above the stairs and below. His Highness the Regent, Grand Marshals of the left and right, Great Counselors and Middle Counselors, the 8 consultants and 7 controllers, ministers and assistant ministers of the 8 ministries, and warriors in the service of divers houses. And all the civil and military officials looked on, holding their breath and clenching their fists. Hirori turned his face toward the bird, ready to pull back the bowstring. First he took off the 2-pronged arrowhead fitted to copyright an elite corps of warriors. His humming, bulb arrow, and cast it away, as though a thought of some kind had entered his mind. Then strongly and fully in the great bow, he drew Bakai's arrow, one that measured 12 hands and the breadth of 2 fingers. Yet not lightly did he suffer it to fly on its way, but awaited the crying voice of the bird. The bird flew down beyond his wont, crying out 200 feet above the Shishinden. And listening attentively, Hirori released the arrow with a mighty twang. The humming bulb sang and echoed above the Shishinden until it found its mark within the cloud, whereupon, at once, a thing dropped down from the eaves of the Jijuden with a sound as of the falling of a large stone, and lay doubled up in front of one of the clusters of bamboo. All the men above the stairs and below called out together, "Ah, he has hit it. He has hit it." For an hour their admiring voices clamored, nor was there any time when they were quiet. The emperor caused Menoff, the imperial guard, to hold pine torches on high, that he might gaze upon the bird. And he saw that the head was the head of a man, and the body is that of a snake. Thebel was crooked in front with saw teeth, and there were long spurs on the legs as sharp as swords. When the wingtips were stretched out, its length was 16 feet from end to end. When Hirori shot, "Why did headache off the 2-pronged arrowhead and cast it away?" asked the emperor. Respectfully Hirori answered, "Because the bird called above the palace, therefore I took off the 2-pronged arrowhead and cast it away. It would have been a vexatious thing had my arrow fallen down and stood on top of the august building." By these words Hirori found increased favor in the sight of the Supreme Highness. Quickly that night, he was invested with the 5th rank, and the next day he received 2 large estates in the province of Inaba. Surely his fame as an archer will endure for all time. The Taiheiki, the mater of the Garden of Divine Waters, soon the emperor set his hand to restore the Garden of Divine Waters, thinking, although the war is ended, strange portents continue to tell of evil to come. For turning away calamity, what can be more efficacious than the mysteries of the true word? The remainder of this section is devoted to a history of the garden. The matter of the Garden of Divine Waters. Now this Garden of Divine Waters was a garden 20 yards long on the 4 sides, modeled after the divine park of King Wen of Chu, That was laid out when first the great palace enclosure was built thereafter. In the august reign of the emperor, Kamu, 2 temples were established on the east and west of Suzukumen Gate. The one on the left was called the Eastern Temple, and the one on the right was called the Western Temple. In the Eastern Temple, K6 Daishi of Mount Koya enshrined the more than 700 images of the womb treasury registered to guard the throne, while in the Western, Templeth monk reformer Shubin of the southern capital displayed the more than 500 images of the Diamond Realm registered to pray for the long life of the emperor. Around the spring of the 23rd year of Enryaku, in the august reign of Kamu Tenno, it came to pass that Kobo Daishi crossed the seas to Tiang in search of the law. And K6 Daishi being thus absent, the monk reformer Shubin alone attended closely upon the dragon countenance, reciting prayers in the morning and evening. Once when the emperor had called for water wherewith to wash his hands, the water that was brought him was exceedingly cold, so that he put it aside for a while, for indeed it was frozen. Shubin's name was not added until later. Registered too, the images were in a mandala depicting the deities of the womb treasury or material world. There are usually 414 figures in such a mandala, but the number varies. Registered T. He displayed a mandala depicting the deities of the Diamond Realm or Eternal World. Made the fire sign in front of that water, and behold, face melted instantly, becoming as boiling water. And the emperor marveled exceedingly. Thereupon, the emperor caused an abundance of charcoal to be burned in a brazier and commanded sliding doors to be placed around it, so that the heat might remain inside. When Thier in the cold chamber had become as in the 3rd month of spring, wiping away Theswet from his face, the emperor said, "Try to put out this fire." Shubin made the water sign in front of the fire, and behold, the blazing flames were extinguished instantly, becoming as cold ashes. And a chill pierced men's flesh, as though copyright water had been poured over their bodies. Thereafter, many strange and miraculous things of this kind were wrought by Shubin, until the emperor's trust and admiration waxed exceeding great. Now Kobe Daishi returned to Japan and Kamido the palace. And when the emperor had inquired concerning other lands, he spoke to Kob 6 Daishi concerning the marvels wrought by the monk reformer Shubin. And on a certain occasion, when Kobe Daishi had Kamido the palace, he hid him by his side and commanded Shubin to serve before him. Just at that time, His Majesty was making ready to drink, knowing that it had been erected by the followers of another religion. The stupa fell apart, unable to stand before the king's virtue. The Taiheiki medicinal brew. He set the bowl aside, saying to Shubin, "This liquid is too cold. Please perform rites as usual to make it warm. There will be no difficulty about it," thought Shubin. He prayed with the fire sign, facing the bowl, yet the liquid would not grow hot. The emperor winked at his attendants, saying, "This is very odd," and a lady in waiting poured in some water, boiled for this purpose. Again the emperor raised the hot liquid to drink, and again he laid the bowl down, saying, "This is too hot to hold." Not profiting from previous experience, Shubin again faced the bowl and made the cold water sign. Yet the hot liquid did not cool, but boiled within the bowl as before. And because of these two failures, Shubin lost color and wasor at heart. Thereupon K6 Daishi came out laughing from behind a sliding door, saying, "How now, Shubin? Did you not know of my presence? The radiance of the stars pales before the morning sun, the fireflies erode dark before the dawn moon." So he spoke, and Shubin went away in chagrin, suppressing dejection and concealing anger. Now Shubin's resentment against the emperor entered deep into the marrow of his bones. Copyright. "I will cause a great drought to afflict the realm, that all men within the 4 seas may suffer from hunger and thirst," he thought. Capturing the dragon, gods who dwell in the vast universe of the 3 kinds of thousands of worlds, he shut them up in a tiny water jar, wherefore no rain fell for 3 months, even from the beginning of summer, registered the farmers for boar to go forth to toil in the fields, and all the realms suffered because of the emperor transgression. Grieved that this calamity afflicted the folk, the emperor summoned K6 Bo Daishido pray for rain. And according to the imperial command, Kabed Daishi composed his mind in a trance for 7 days, looking clearly into the 3 kinds of thousands of worlds. He saw that the dragon, gods of near and distant seas, were all shut registered 6, because the dragon gods are rain, bringers, up in a water jar by the power of Shubin spell, wherefore there were no dragon spirits to cause rain to fall. But there was one dragon king called Zenio, dwelling in heatless lake northward from the great snowy mountainson, the border off northern India. Because he was a higher bodhisattva than Shubin, he alone had not responded to Shubin's summons, but had stayed in Heatless Lake. When Kabei Daishi awoke from his trance, he told these things to the emperor, who at once caused a lake to be Dujin front off the palace enclosure, filled it with fresh, cool water, and prayed the Dragon King to come there. The Dragon King Zenio indeed came to the lake in the guise of a golden dragon 10 inches long, riding on a 9-foot snake. And when his coming was reported to the throne, all the court marveled exceedingly. Then, as the emperor representative, Wake no Matsuno worshipped the Dragon King with paper strips asterisk and offerings of divers kinds, whereupon moist clouds welled up, rain fell upon all the land for 3 days without ceasing, and the calamity of the drought was ended utterly. From this time on, the emperor's reverence for the teachings of the true word asterisk waxed stronger and stronger. Shubin's heart was angered within him. Since both of these two were venerable and revered monks, rich in virtue and well practiced in austerities, their humming, bulb arrows came together in the air and fell down, nor was there a time when their sound was not heard. At last K6B6 Daishi noised it abroad that he had entered nirvana, a protective divinity. The Taiheiki suddenly thinking, I shall make Shubin careless. Monks and laymen shed bitter tears, noble and base swallow at their voices mourning. And Shubin destroyed his altar, thinking joyfully, the power of my rituals has prevailed. Thereupon, Shubin's eyes were blinded, blood dripped from his nose, and his mind and body were stricken with anguish, so that he fell down dead in front of his boot altar. Truly Wasthai is a most awesome miracle, a revelation of the truth of the golden teaching. Spells and poisonous medicines returned to their makers. Thenceforward the eastern temple prospered, but the western temple was destroyed. Kabei Daishi bound together grasses of the kind called chigya in the semblance of a dragon, which he put up above his altar. When Hai's rites were done, he sent off the divine hosts that he had summoned, but Zenio the Dragon King he kept in the garden of divine waters. Even today that Dragon King dwells therein, because of a promise that he made, saying, until the dawn when Maitreya comes to preach the 3 sermons under the dragon flower tree, even so long will I guard this land and govern the workings of the Buddhist law. Some say that the grass image turned into a great dragon and flew back toward Heatless Lake, while others believe that it mounted up into the sky with the divine hosts and flew away eastward to Atsuta Shrine in the land of Owari. Was this perhaps an omen of the eastward spread of the Buddhist law, or an auspicious portent signifying the pacification and protection of the eastern seas? Now Kobo Daishi said, if this Dragon King moves to another realm, the waters of the lake will become shallow, and the land will be laid waste. At such a time, let my disciples petition the Dragon King, that he may be kept here to save the nation. Truly, there were times when the waters of the lake were shallow, as though the Dragon King had gone away to another place. But whenever the rituals of the rain, beseeching sutra were performed, then most marvelous indeed was the response thereto, as so that it seemed that he had not yet cast the nation away. To Bisur, this was a praiseworthy and miraculous lake, bringing wind and rain as the season required. Wherefore the generations of emperors worshipped it, and the great nobles of every family reverenced it. When there was a drought, this lake was purified first Ofal. Yet this place fell into ruin after the abdication of the priestly retired Emperor Go-Toba, and brambles closed its paths after the years of Kempo. Boar and deer roamed therein, as well as poisonous snakes. The sound of hunters, humming, bulbs affrighted the hearing of the protectors of the law. The noise of galloping horses startled the hearts of the invisible spirits. Men of good sense lamented because of these things, and were sore afraid. After the disturbance of Shaket, the Zen monk of Musashi, 80, too regretting in his heart that it should be so, raised up a high mud wall with a roof and strong gates to stop the defilement. Viewed again, with the passing of many seasons of cold and heat, the gates and walls failed of their design, leaving nothing to prevent impure and defiled men and women from entering therein, nor did cattle and horses fear to go back and forth in search of water and grass. End of history. Truly it was because of these things that now the Suprema Highness said, "Assuredly is this displeasing to the Dragon King. We must bring peace to the land by restoring the garden with all speed and worshipping him respectfully." The banishment of the princely minister of military affairs. The matter of Lady Li, it could not be helped that the princely minister of military copyright affairs had put off his holy robes while the realm was disturbed, for in no other way might he have escaped calamity. But now that the 4 seas were tranquil, it was the desire of the Buddhist that he should return to be the abbot of the 3,000 as before, to receive and foster the Buddhist Laoend the imperial way. Nor was the will of the Supreme Highness otherwise. Yet he asked to degrees. H6J6 Yasutoki. The Taiheiki governed military affairs of the realm as the barbarian, subduing shogun. And at last the emperor commanded that it should be so, although his august heart was troubled within him. Since it was thus, it had been fitting for the prince to conduct himself circumspectly, with esteem for the high estate wherein the 4 seas placed their trust. Yet he was exceedingly arrogant, cared nothing for men's censure, and thirsted mightily after pleasures of the flesh. Wherefore, indeed, were the men of the realm put in fear of new perils to come. It is said, after a great disturbance, men wrap up their bows and arrows and put their shields in battle, axes in bags. Yet if this prince but heard that men were wielders of strong bows and long swords, he rewarded them beyond all reason, ordering them to serve him closely, though to be sure there was no need for it. Furthermore, these fellows found no amusement save with weapons of war, but went around in the capital and Shirakawa by night, fell upon men at crossroads, and in this place and that cut down passers-by, youths, monks, women, and children. Truly, there was no end to their murdering. But after all, it was only to strike down the Ashikaga minister of civil affairs that in this wise the prince gathered together warriors and practiced the military arts. Would you know why the anger of the princely minister of military affairs raged thus furiously against the minister Takoji? Though until this time Takoji had behaved loyally and with due regard for his station, nor was there any report of his having committed an impropriety. Learn then that in the 5th month of the past year, when the imperial armies brought down Rokuhara, followers of the Tono sign of the law destroyed earthen storehouses in the capital and carried off goods and precious things. Lord Ashikaga arrested these to put an end to their violence, cut off the heads of more than 20, and hung them Upat 6th wardriver bed with high placards whereon was written, "Followers of the Tono sign of the law, the priestly servant of the Prince of the Great Pagoda, executed for committing robberies in full daylight in manaplaces." Angered thereat, the Tono sign of the law complained to the prince, devising slanders and schemes of various kinds. And such things were repeated many times until tidings concerning them reached the ears of the emperor. The prince, too, grew angry, thinking constantly would that I could strike down the minister Takoji, even from the time of his abiding at Shigi. Yet, could he do no other than abide in silence, since the Supreme Highness would not agree? But may it not be that slanderous words were still being spoken? For secretly, for a secret purpose, the prince sent orders to all the provinces to summon warriors. Hearing tidings of these orders, the minister Takaju went in stealth to the prince's stepmother, she who was an empress's peer. It is clearly proven that the princely minister of war summons warriors from the provinces to seize the throne, he said, and offered up orders for the emperor to behold, sent by the prince to divers provinces. Now thereupon the emperor waxed exceeding wroth, saying, "This prince must be banished." And he summoned the prince, telling him that there would be a poetry meeting in the central hall. Not thinking at all that it was such a matter, the prince went to the palace privately, with but 2 forerunners and 15 or 16 attendants. Yet 2 men Matarodito receive him near the bell chamber, according to the emperor's command. Yaki Hogan and the governor of Hoki, who laid hands upon him and shut him up in the race-track hall. Thenceforth the prince rose up and lay down tearfully in a tiny room far from the paths of men, barred with boards like a spider web. Alas! What karma is mine, he thought. When the military caused me to conceal my person in the beginning of Jenk, ever were my sleeves moistened by dew under trees and between rocks. Now that I am come back to the capital, I suffer punishment because of the words of a slanderous minister before a day of my lifetime of happiness is spent. Truly, there was nothing of which he did not think, not even the karma of his unknown former lives. The Taiheiki, since it is said that unjust dishonor does not endure forever, will not his majesty alter his design, he thought. But there were those that said, the court has agreed to banish the prince, and his spirit was eaten up with sorrow. Secretly the prince wrote a letter setting forth all that was in his heart, and handed it to a lady-in-waiting with whom he had dealt kindly in a past day, bidding her give it to such an official as was appointed to present communications to the throne from exalted personages, and to take care that it reached the emperor quickly. In the letter he said, "Now would I declare my innocence to the throne, I who am struck down by the imperial displeasure, yet my tears fall and my spirit faints in darkness. Despair encompasses me about, my words are lacking in wit. Great indeed will be my thankfulness for all the days of my life, if his majesty will but deign to understand 10,000 things from one, if he will but add to my words and look upon me with compassion." After the time of Shakya, the military took power into their hands, causing the court to leave off its governing. And it was so for many years. Because this thing was hateful to my heart, I put away the holy garments of compassion and humility to clothe my body in the strong armor that subdues enemies in an instant. Within myself, I trembled at the sin of disobeying the Buddhist commandments. Before the eyes of men bore the century off those who called me shameless. But although it was thus, for his majesty's sake I forgot selfish things, nor did I fear death, but thought only to smite the enemy. At that time there were many local ministers and filial sons at the court, yet some were lacking in resolution, while others waited vainly, saying, "Let the will of heaven be done." I alone roused up valiant men without the help of arms of war, spied out the doings of the enemy hosts, and hid my body in steep and cramped places. The traitors looked on me as the chief of the imperial cause, commanded the forces to lay hands upon me, and posted rewards in a myriad doors. Truly, though I lived, there was no place wherein my body might rest. By day I lay in hidden valleys and deep mountains where moss overspread the rocks. By night I went forth to desolate hamlets and remote villages, walking with bare feet over the frost. How many thousands and tens of thousands of times Mispirit fainted as I stroked the dragon's beard. How many times my heart froze as I trod on the tiger's tail. At last, by my devisings, the enemy wascreshed beneath Anaran battle axe. For was it any other man than myself, who by his loyal deeds brought back the imperial carriage Toth capital, and made the phoenix calendar to govern the heavens for all time? Yet now my warlike successes are held as nothing, and suddenly I am blamed for wicked things. I have heard men speak off the sins that are held against me, but not one thing thereof is a thing done by me. Most bitterly do I grieve that His Majesty does not inquire concerning the place whence these false slanders have issued. Though I look up to Su to heaven, the sun and moon forbear to shine on an unfilial son. Though I look down to cry out to earth, the mountains and rivers will not support a subject lacking in propriety. The bond between parent and child is severed. Heaven and earth alike cast me away. Can there be another sorrow equal to this? No longer do I seek to hold office, for henceforth there is none on whose behalf I may devise meritorious actions. If His Majesty will deign to lighten my sentence off death, I will give up the name of prince forever and assume the robes of a monk at once. Does His Majesty not see it? When Shen Sheng died, the land of Qin became disordered. Registered when Su was struck down, the days of Ca Qin were ended. Registered, slanders that soak in slowly and accusations that wound directly registered arise from small things and grow into big things. Why does His Majesty not look at the present, though His gaze extends to antiquity? With all my heart I beg to be heard. B.C. had been sent into exile on the northern frontier. When the emperor became mortally ill in 210 3C, he ordered that Su barricled, but a younger son and 2 ambitious courtiers substituted a forged letter commanding Su to commit suicide. Although the success of this ruse enabled the younger son to ascend the throne, the dynasty collapsed within 3 years. A tag from the Analects. The Taiheiki, written with fear and awe on the 5th day off the 3rd month. Morinaga, to his lordship the former great subject of the left. Perhaps the Supreme Highness would have pardoned that prince, had thy's letter but reached his ears. But in the end the official spoke no word thereof, fearful lest the wrath of certain persons descend upon him. Heaven did not hear the prince, nor was his plea of loyalty made known. Moreover, it came to pass at this time that in stealth the court struck down 30 personal followers of the prince, men who for 2 or 3 years had stayed by his side faithfully, and now awaited their rewards. Truly this was beyond words. Finally, on the 3rd day of the 5th month, they took the prince to the abiding place of Tadayoshi no Asan, who sent him down to Kamakura with an army of 600 guards, to put him into a cave prison in Nikkei Valley. None accompanied him, save a palace lady of high degree, called the Lady of the South. Slanting rain drenched his sleeves in the dark cell, far from the rays of the sun and moon. Ever Washi's pillow damp with water dripping from the rocks. And for half a year, he abode in that place. How pitiful were the feelings in his heart. Although the emperor had sent the prince away to Kamakura in sudden anger, assuredly was it contrary to the imperial will that he should be dealt with thus harshly. But Tadayoshi no Asan locked him up in a prison because he bore an old hatred against him. How shameful it was. In the following anecdote, a Chinese parallel for Lady Samophib behavior is recalled. Since ancient days, many times has a stepmother's slander of a filial child brought ruin to a nation or family. Long ago in a different land, there was a man called Duke Hsin of Qin, who had 3 sons of his consort Chiang. The eldest son was called Shen. Sheng, the second son was called Chung and the 3rd son was called I Wu. When these 3 were grown to manhood, their mother Chiang fell ill and died suddenly. Although Duke Hsin mourned Chiang tenderly, truly as it said, the flower of the heart of man fades and changes. 88 for when the time since her death had become long, unmindful of his ancient vows, took to wife a beautiful woman called Lady Li, who bewitched the eye with her rosy cheeks and curving painted brows, and rejoiced the heart of a man with her adroit words and complacent manners. Duke Hsin loved this lady so deeply that he never saw the face of the person who had died, not even in a dream. When some time Chad passage and this wise, Lady Li also gave birth to a son, whose name was Hsi. Although Hsi was very young, his father favored him above his 3 older sons because of his love for the mother Lady Li, thinking always, I would that I might set aside the 3 sons of my former consort Chihi Chiang and yield the state of Qin to the child of the Wambaf Lady Li. In her heart, Lady Li rejoiced thereat, but deceitfully she spoke aloud, saying, HSI, Chihi is still too young to distinguish good from evil. It would be hateful to the hearts of the men of the realm were he to succeed to the rule of the state before the 3 older sons, not knowing the wise from the foolish. So she admonished him many times. Duke Hsin looked with increased favor upon Lady Li because of her unselfish spirit, her concern for the censure of men, and her thought for the safety of the state. He entrusted all affairs of government to her, until her power waxed exceedingly great, and the whole realm bowed before her. Now it came to pass on a certain occasion that the eldest son Sheng made an offering for a memorial service for his mother, worshipping with an ox, a sheep, and a swine at Chihi Chiang's tomb in Cha. Woe. That which remained from the offering he brought to his father Duke Hsin, and Duke Hsin being gone out o his hunting ground just then, he wrapped up the offering and ulfed it. Yet secretly Lady Li added a deadly poison thereto, such as men call Chen. When Duke Hsin came back from the hunting ground, he the Taiheiki made to eat of this sacrificial meat, but Lady Li said, when a thing is sent from without, let the master know dat off it until another has been given thereof. She gave of it to a person that was there, and immediately the man died spitting blood. Lady Li cried out and gave of the meat to the fowls and dogs in the courtyard, whereupon all the fowls and dogs died. Then, greatly astonished, Duke Hsin threw the remaining pieces down to the ground, and the ground where he threw them was bored through, and all the plants thereabout were shriveled up. With feigned tears, Lady Li said, when you sought to make Chihi your heir, I admonished you and would not suffer it to be so, because I loved your heir Sheng equally with Chihi. How heartless it is that with this poisoned Sheng sought to kill his father and me, thinking to seize the land of Qin. Truly, when Duke Hsin is gone, Sheng will not allow Chihi and me to live for a single day. Please put me away and kill Chihi, that the heart of Sheng may be set at ease. So she spoke to Duke Hsin, and lifted up her voice and wept. And Duke Hsin, greatly angered, commanded his jailers to kill his heir Sheng, since by nature he was a man offshalo wit, credulous of slanders. All the courtiers regretted that Sheng should be struck down without having done any evil. Flee quickly to another land, they warned. But Sheng said, long ago in the days of my youth I lost a mother, and now in the days of my manhood I have found a stepmother. Indeed, I have added bad fortune to unhappiness. But is there any country between heaven and earth that does not have fathers and sons? If I were to go to another land to escape death, all who saw me would hate and dishonor me, saying, behold the unfilial monster Ha gave his father poison to kill him. Heaven knows that I have done no wrong. It will be best to die of this false accusation, that my father's wrath may be appeased. So he spoke, and died on his sword before the coming of the executioners. Hearing of this, Sheng's brothers Chung, and I Wu fled to another country, fearful of the slanders of Lady Li. Chihi was enabled to succeed to the dukedom of the state of Qin, but because they flouted the mandate of heaven, very soon Duke Hsin and Chihi were both killed by a minister named Li Ko, and the state of Qin was destroyed in an instant. End of anecdote. Now Themenov Japan spoke together, saying, T.S. it not entirely because of the martial accomplishments of the Prince of the Great Pagoda that the war is ended, and the deposed emperor sits upon the throne again. It had been meet that his majesty admonish and forgive the prince when heard in trifling matters, yet he has banished him into the hands of his enemies. Is this not a sign that the court will again bow before the power of the military? So they spoke, and at last when the life of the Prince of the Great Pagoda was ended, all the realm entered swiftly upon the age of the general's rule. 31. ANK page character list. This list includes bibliographical references, and the principal Chinese characters which figure in the narrative. Azuma Kagami and Er Bunka de Gakushishi Sosho. ESIKLGPR, ERE Daike Jempe Seiswiki LB. And EB4G Phi PL. Copyright BPLERFT ELTTBRE EC Shigaku Zashi RSEZ. Shijno Aniki Copyright Yi Shinshaku Nihon Bungaku SD Show HR Peer RS Character List S6 390. 1. March from Shinamura to Roku Akahashi Moritoki, Sosha. 239, 286 Hara, 250, 50. 2 Ashikaga, Takewaka, 273, 70, 4 Akahashi Shigestoki, 363. Roman 34, 73, 165, 240, 243, 340, 3 Ashikaga Hayabu Note. See Ashikaga Chiatao, 340. 2 Chiba Sadaten, 360. 4 Tadyoshi Ashikaga Tadyoshi, 239, 320. 1 365 Chifei, 120. 1 Chigusa Lord, see Minamoto no Ta. 4 Cinnabar Courtyard, 119 Consort, Imperial, see Inner Princess de Butsu Sadano, 286, 295 90. 6 Debutsu Takano, 334, 330. 6 Daigokuten Great Hall of State, Roman 24, 347N, 340. 8 350 1 Daijin Cloister, 50 4 Daikakuji Line, Roman 39, XLN, 10. Dreams of Kusunoki, 60, 769. Fear of Military, 13. Flight, Capture, Exile, and Return of Roman 42, Roman 46, 55, 50, 7, Fan K Yoi, 112, 178 and Fan Li, 108, 20, 5 Passim Kamakura Shoguns and Roman 26, Roman 39, Roman 43, Mandate to Nita. 302 Gunki Monogatari Sea War Tales, Roman 15, Roman 16, XXV Hojo Shurd Sakin, No Teifu, see Hajj 347N, 348, 350, 1 Great Pagoda, Prince of, see Morinaga Joukai 6, Fujiwara no Kanzen. X Zilin Hachiman Shrine, Iwashimizu, 105 Hachiman Shrine, see Shinamura, 250 Hachiman Tard Yashi, see Minamoto no Yashi. Hanazano, X Emperor X Lian, 62 and Han Xie Chang Li, 15, 17 XXX Vili Roman 39, Han H Xiang, 15, 17 Hanyaji Temple, 135, 330. 4 Hanyi, 15 Hatano Nabumichi, 58.96 Hayami Magasabure, 224, 26. 12 104 5, 340. 6 Issei Monogatari Tales of Issei, 349 N It D Hikajir 6, 22 It 6 Yamato no Gyro, 190, 1 Iwajikumaro, 170 6 Jabu Mount, Roman 42, 50, 7. Surrenders Imperial Symbols, 270 Kagashi Gorei 6 Heidemann, no J6 95, 260 Kagashi Noriyuki, 20, 1 Kojima Hōshi, Roman 17, Roman 18 Kojima Takanori, 107 8, 125, 230, 234 Koken, Empress 340, 2 Kokiden, 8 Kokenshi. 340, 5 Madanakoji Nabufusa, Roman 38, Scythe 344, Captivity of 80, 184. 9394, Mission of Takamakura, 2627. Serves 2 Masters 128, 30 Madnock 6 Jai Sufusa, 50, 556, 7980, 197, 340. 4 Makino Shaken, 149 Manju, 302 Masashide. See Kusunoki Masashide Maya, Battle of 201, 2 Maya Castle, 190, 1 Mega. Magasabure Nagamune, 220, 728, 250, 650, 7 Mengshibshi 140, 5 Michiyuki Sea Journey, 38N 130, 7 Miura Temple Sionjoji. Roman 27, Ayan Military Rulers, League of 125. 304, 5 Nanjo Manano, 24 Nashimoto Monastery, 11, 127. Monk 330. 4. Death of 336. Warned Sagami Monk 26. At Yashino Castle 164, 175, 180, 80. 1 Nikkei Keichin 90, 3 Nikkei 6 Shimitsu Kogen C. Takamoto. 31 Nimi 6 Emperor 29 and 9th Prince son of Go-Daigo. 101 Nishigori Hagendai 13, 79 Index Nida. Length Roman 16, Roman 17. Meaning off-title Roman 17. As Wartel Roman 15 Taiheiki Shinshaku, Roman 14 Taiheiki, Zoku Nihon Koten Tokyuhen. Roman 14 Ti Kung 205, 207 Shichij 6 Bridge, 230. 3 Shiya 113, 119 Shingon Cloister, 340. 9 Shinbeden, 340 9 Shinkakinshi, 331 N. See Hojo Takatoki T8 Saipi, 113 16 Tajima, 230. 1 Tajimi Kuninaga. Excel Roman 41, 14, 19, 2120. 3 Shani Family, Excel VN. 70. 8 Shunga of Mine, 99, 320, 728 Sokutai. 5 7 and Sokuya. Siakamatsu Sokui Soldier Monks Roman 27, Roman 28. In Battle of Karasaki Beach, 58-62. Go-Daigo and Excel Roman 42, 63-64 Invasion. Of Capital 217-21. Of Yashino 149. 84, 150, 456, 206, 211, 214, 231. 2 Ts Outsu, Chin, 130. Roman 43 Zenio, 370, 778-3, ANK page copyright.